Back again. How was your Thanksgiving? Good?
It was good. Very good. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was trying to plan this for some time, and it was like kind of last minute. You were just like, "Fuck it, I'll do it," because you were in LA for like Thanksgiving stuff. But I appreciate you coming back on. Genuinely, that was probably one of the cooler episodes that I was able to do, and the response, you could see how much people love you, even outside of your platform that you're sort of native to. And I guess the first question I have for you about this, in regards to your whole journey, why do you think people are so connected to you? What do you think makes people so connected to you?
Lately or just in general?
It's interesting because like in general, and I answer more lately because I think it all kind of coincides, but I want to hear your perspective.
Well, I've been doing this for 10 years and the message has never changed. I've been doing it since 2017 and, the tone has changed a little bit. I've gotten older and I've refined my positions, but it's always been really the same principle, which is America first and usual kind of stuff. And when I started, I was radioactive. Nobody wanted anything to do with me, and like nobody agreed with me. Yeah. Even within my circles on the very far right, I was sort of a pariah. And I think the reason that people have come around now, I think the country changed.
Yeah.
I think that especially after the pandemic, I think it was kind of all downhill after that.
Yeah.
Because that's when people really got affected by the corruption, the lies. People lived it firsthand, and it affected them on a deep and personal level because they were confined to their houses, had to get vaccinated, people died. And I think that's when a lot of the credibility of the institutions and the narrative that they push started to fall apart. And I think it kind of totally collapsed soon after that. I think the other big precipitating cause, shortly after the pandemic, Elon bought Twitter. Yeah. And so we had total free speech on X. And lately, you've also had free speech on Instagram and YouTube.
Yeah.
They kind of caught up with X.
I'm going to interrupt. Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Do you see all the clips and the things? Do you see, do you go on Instagram? Do you have an Instagram? Can you see what people are saying?
I can't.
Bro, it is insane. So you don't have an Instagram account that you look?
No, and I make a burner every now and again. They always get banned.
Dude, the things people say about your content is it might be some of the funniest on the internet. I don't know. So you haven't seen the memes of you and Candace? And,
I see those. I see the clips.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay. Or you you dunking a basketball in slow motion.
yeah.
It's you become this for lack of a better term, I guess a star on the internet. And the reason why I asked you that question was, from my perspective from the outside watching it, is I think a lot of the things you talk about, people have thought about for a while and for a long time. And I want to get into this conversation about the white nationalist kind of ideas, because I think a large portion of the people who follow you and who are engaged with you, besides the fact that you tell the truth on a lot of different subjects that people have been afraid to talk about for forever, because I'll never forget when I first got into, and I think I told you this off camera last time, when I first got into making content in 2011, 2012, 2013, there was 3 things you knew you can never talk about. And I'm not I wasn't a big popular guy. That I didn't have a big following on YouTube. I was just kind of starting out on Instagram, and then I started to transition to YouTube. And you always knew it was you couldn't say racist things. You couldn't say you couldn't talk bad about black people. That was 1.
Right.
You couldn't talk bad about gay people. That was 2. And you couldn't talk about the Jews. And it was, and I'll never forget it. I remember it always felt like the first 2 were you kind of could.
Right.
It would offend people. The third one was, if you talked about that group of people, it was you knew there were repercussions for sure.
Right.
And so I think it's interesting how over time it's become, and I want to get into why I think this is happening, but more specifically to you, I think a part of your popularity, because I did the podcast with you, and I wanted to talk to you about this when you came back, was I probably had at my gym personally 6 different people who are I had an electrician come here and he was like, yo, I really appreciate the interview you did. Thanks for doing that. Like, we need to like platform more of these people that don't always have like the mainstream narrative idea. I had a couple of like gym bros come up to me and talk about, yo, I really appreciate, like, real people. And we'll get into this because it has to do with what I want to talk about later. But the thing that I said, well, why do you like Nick? Why do you like his content? And I'm talking about the electrician was some Mexican guy. The gym bro was a Mexican dude. And we were having this conversation. And he's like, I think the reason why, he said specifically, was because you tell the truth on a lot of things. And you say a lot of the things that people for a very long time, I feel like, have been, I don't know if I can really say this.
Right.
And so I think that's why you garnered so much love from all types of people. Because I don't know if you know this, but like when I reference those funny videos, like where you're saying like, I'm not going to say the word. Yeah. I know you say the word, but you're like, can a N-word breathe? You know, like, and people, I read the comments and it's like black people being like, nah, he gets the pass. Like they're just like, for some reason when he says it, it's like, it's okay. Like, it's funny to see that, you know, you're kind of beyond the political side of it. It's just the nature, I think, of the control or the censorship or the, you can't do this or you don't do that, or this word is so bad, because that got so, and that's why I was referencing back like 2011, 2012. Everyone was so afraid to say anything that was like just anything outside of the politically correct, you know, thing.
Right.
And I think that's the core of why you have so much success, because you do it in a way that, you know, it doesn't feel hateful.
Right.
Sometimes, sometimes, not all the time. But it feels playful.
Right.
And I think it makes people go, yeah, like this is not as serious as it should, because outside of you, like I've noticed that, which is like, there's another content creator at my gym, black guy, makes funny videos, some like, you know, like reverse racism type content. It's hilarious. And he's like, yo, I love Nick. He's like, dude, you got to bring him in the gym. I want to meet him so bad. So it's like, you have these real people who are really like excited that you're having success. And I think it was funny after, you know, you did my pod, and then that was like kind of like towards the beginning of like the mainstream, like generational run. And then you're on these other podcasts, and everyone's reaction to you, you know, the Ben Shapiro's, the Matt, the Daily Wire, the crew, the, you know, all the people who are this guy's basically, they try to frame it as if like, it's just incels, and it's just people who, they have no lives, and that's why they're supported, and they have nothing else to live for, and you guys should get out and work, and this whole idea that when they talk about it.
Right.
But that's not the people who are actually coming up to me in real life and saying, no, like this is the reason why. And it's not always your political takes. It's how you carry yourself with, I think this is just me.
Right.
And I whether it's political or whether it's you know, just making content, I've noticed over the last 4 or 5 years, that's the thing that makes people successful, is just the truth of like who they are as a person, without trying to hold these filters and be like, I got to make sure everyone's okay with this. And I think that's why you have a large part of your success.
Yeah.
And so on that note, what's your perception when you start to get the run, you start to go up, and everyone's like, oh, well, you shouldn't listen to this guy because he says this one specific thing, without like actually analyzing or looking at the other things you're saying, and they just make you to be the villain again.
Well, I mean, there are certain people that for them it's very political, and they're panicking that people are listening to my show, because on a deep level, it's political. It's a political talk show. We talk about political issues, and the things that I spotlight on the show, like, for example, the Israel lobby, the war in the Middle East, they find that very inconvenient. Like Daily Wire in particular, they're obsessed with Israel, foreign aid, the wars. And so for them, they're basically trying to keep cancel culture together, which is, no, you can't like this guy. You can't listen to this guy. He said that. Yeah. So that means he's disqualified. And I think you're right. A lot of people, they don't agree with everything I say. And the jokes don't always land. Yeah. But they see it and they say, you know, here's a guy that's not part of the establishment. He's authentic. He's just being who he is. He's unfiltered. He's raw. And even people that are left wing, people that are not white, people that you wouldn't think are my usual audience have some level of respect for that.
Yeah.
They say, I don't agree with any of this guy's views, but he's kind of funny. Or, seems like he's got his heart in the right place or something like that.
Yeah.
So I guess there's just a lot of fatigue about the level of control that we've been under for 10 years, whether you call wokeness, censorship. Everybody recognizes all of it went way too far. It was suffocating and oppressive. And now people say, we'll even tolerate who was considered the worst of the worst. It's better than what we had before. So, but I think that's a very specific thing. I think there's also a lot of people and when I say the specific thing, I mean, there's a lot of people that have a political, a vested interest in people not liking me. Because what happens is if people watch me, if they get to know me, if they just sit down and watch the show, they see I'm polite, I'm respectful. I don't think I come at it from a place of hatred or mean-spiritedness. I think they see that I'm just a little provocative. I just don't have a filter. And I think everybody has someone like that in their life.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of comedy they watch or, whatever. And there's some people that still, for whatever reason, they're kind of like the remnant of wokeness. I feel like that's still out there in some places. There's people that say, they just are not comfortable with free thinking. They're not comfortable if you, for example, I did the Tucker Carlson interview.
Yeah.
And I had a comment in there where I said, I like Joseph Stalin.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of people go, oh, well, I don't like that. I don't like what and it's like, really? I mean, and people don't have to love the comment, or maybe they don't understand where I'm coming from on that. But it's almost like they can't accept anything into their consciousness. They can't entertain a person or the idea if there's something that just doesn't pass through the filter, something that isn't mainstream or something that is, I don't know. I mean, are we allowed to have a controversial opinion? Are we allowed to say something that sounds wrong at first? I mean, to me, that's interesting. That's eccentric. That's different. But there's still a remnant that's deeply uncomfortable with heterodox ways of thinking.
So when you said that it's a Stalin thing, what did you mean when you say you like him?
Well, for me, I look at Stalin just like I look at the other figure in World War II. To me, these are historical figures. The painter. Right. The painter.
The painter.
And I saw people on Twitter, they're saying he's a Stalin admirer. And I'm like, what does that even mean? To me, this is like somebody saying he likes Oliver Cromwell and Napoleon Bonaparte. It's like, this is a figure from history. He's been dead for 70 years. And so I look at it from the lens of, it's an historical figure from a deeply fascinating time who became one of the most consequential human beings in the history of mankind. And I think, I don't support murder. I don't support mass murder or forced famine or, the evil things that he did. But he's an object of curiosity and fascination for me. But, I guess it came out wrong or, people didn't like the way I said it. But that's what I mean by that.
Yeah. You understand why they don't like it, because they just go straight from, oh, he likes this guy did evil things, that means you're evil.
I mean, of course I get it, but on some level I don't really understand it because, it's like, for example, women these days are obsessed with serial killers.
Yeah,
how many Netflix shows are they going to make about, right? True crime and the morbid that women are into now. It's like the worst of the worst. And Luigi Mangione.
Yeah.
They were sending him their panties. Kissing with lipstick. They're kissing letters and spraying it with perfume. I say I like Stalin and everybody loses their minds. But I think that's just free thinking. I think that's just, maybe because I'm an intellectually very open and curious person. To me, I see nothing wrong with it. But for other people, I guess it signals that I'm a messed up person. Yeah,
it's crazy. I get it. I understand both sides of it. I also understand why they go, oh, look, he said that. Because obviously they want to frame you in a way that is negative, right?
Right.
So this whole Ben Shapiro, Mark Levin, these guys who, the thing that I don't understand with them is how they don't see themselves in it. Like how they say all these things, and I don't see how they don't see everything else that they've sort of done or said, right? You know, you talk about the dual loyalty thing. Like there's that clip of Ben Shapiro being like, the guarantor of my loyalty to the United States is because of Israel.
Right.
And I don't understand why they don't see that. Like those, like you saying you like Stalin and then being like, the reason why I sort of like ride or stand for this country that I'm in and I'm benefiting from is because of another country. I don't understand how they don't see the issue there when most people hear that and see that.
Right.
What's your take on that? Like when I know you have your opinions on it, right? But like, why do you think they just believe that because it worked for so long that it should just work now? Or is it like, are they willfully ignoring their words? Like,
yeah, there's like a deep lack of self-awareness. Because when these people put this content out, you have to say to yourself, like for example, even on a different subject, Ben Shapiro, he's in the middle of all this controversy lately. Everyone's criticizing him. And he goes on a show and says, if you can't afford to live in your house, it's like, what are you thinking? How did you think that was going to play? He goes and says, if you can't afford to live in your city, go move somewhere else. You don't deserve. Yeah. And it's like, do you hear yourself? Do you hear how that sounds? And I genuinely think they don't. And here's why. We have to realize that, like someone like Shapiro, for example, he came around pretty early on, but he really hit his stride like 2015, 2016. His entire career was built under the censorship regime. And so think about this from like the point of view of a business. If you're in any business, all of your competition is banned from bringing their product to the market, because that's really what censorship is.
Yeah.
Him and a handful of others were allowed to be on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and not just allowed, they worked together. For many years, Shapiro and his Daily Wire, they were like the #2 advertiser on all of Facebook.
Yeah.
So they had like a deep partnership. They also had an arrangement, I'm told, with YouTube during the pandemic, where they basically made a deal. If they don't talk about the vaccine or COVID conspiracies, they could stay on the platform. So from roughly 2017 until 2022, that's like 5 years. That's a long time on social media. They had like a virtual monopoly or like an oligopoly where a handful of people were able to use the major platforms and nobody else could. Gavin McInnes, Jared Taylor, me, Sam Hyde, Alex Jones, like all the big people were wiped out, literally just could not be on the platforms. And so I think what happened is they got really comfortable, and I think that muscle kind of atrophied. Because without the competition, without the resistance, they weren't able to develop arguments. They weren't able to develop, how do you defend against somebody like me? They didn't have to think about that because I was just banned. So they could sort of safely ignore that and pretend that didn't exist. This kind of, you could call it a critique of Ben Shapiro from his right, or from a different perspective other than the left.
Yeah.
He was used to debating socialists and blue-hair college students. Then people start to challenge him from a different perspective, and suddenly he literally cannot deal with it. He doesn't have the antibodies, let's say. And so I think that censorship made them weak, and it actually made people like me stronger. Yeah. Because existing in the underground, you had to fight for your life to survive, to have an audience, to keep people coming in. You really had to be the best of the best, have the funniest clips, the best talking points, information, whatever. And I think now that we're on a level playing field, it's like when Batman fought Bane in Dark Knight Rises. It's like easy. Victory defeated you. We're here breaking your back now. So I think that's really what did it.
All right, guys, this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Now, holidays are a time of tradition, and maybe it's a good time to create a new tradition in your life. Some talk therapy has helped me in the past, has helped me at multiple different times throughout my past. If you guys have ever thought about doing it, give it a shot. It's a very easy way to get an outside, unbiased perspective on whatever it is you're trying to figure out in your life, whatever you're trying to make sense of, you know, without the sort of people that maybe you're speaking to currently that are sort of connected to your circumstances. So a lot of times maybe their input will be a little bit biased towards that circumstance. So BetterHelp is a good way to get therapy. Outside of that, it's a good way to do it, that it's online. You don't have to worry about driving somewhere. It's easy with the schedule. Go to betterhelp.com right now. Use code RawTalk to get 10% off your first month. If you've thought about it, do it now. Let's get into the rest of this podcast. All right. So this next point is a little conspiratorial on my part. Dude, what if you're the greatest psyop of all time?
For who?
for them. Like, so hear me out. I'll give you I mean, obviously this happened, right? And when I say this, I mean, they wanted Biden to win. That's like, it was like Trump, Biden, they wanted Biden to win. And then Trump had all these legal issues, got this massive donation. Then they're like, okay, Trump's our guy now because this guy's failing. What if on the social media space, because here's the point that I'm trying to make. And I don't know if we talked about this before, but I know you're aware of this. Obviously, CNN, Fox, all these mainstream things that have sort of, you know, psyoped us over all these years for everything to believe this, believe that. They knew it was dying. They saw it. So hear me out when I say this. There's no way they believed, or they go, this is dying, hands up, we're not fighting. I don't believe that. I believe that they knew social media was going to end up being this way. So in my head, I look at Tucker, I look at you, I look at Candace, Piers Morgan, all these people, I would say like the bigger political pundits and commentators. One of them, or all of them, or some of them, have to be involved somehow with the narrative. Whatever narrative, it's up for debate. But I think there's no doubt that the powers that be just go, hands up, we're not going to play this game anymore, right? It's very obvious that Ben Shapiro was a part of that from the inception. But what if they recognized our ship is sinking here? Who are people listening to the most? Who are they connecting with the most? That's who we need to back. And the reason why I mentioned Trump was that's kind of what happened, where it's like, okay, people are really riding with Trump because he's saying these things and he's rallied this like real core cult fan base. There's no denying that. Next thing you know, he gets a ton of money. He gets all the donations. You know, he gets to get out of all his legal issues. And now he's our president. I'm saying, like, what if from a crazy perspective, it was like, imagine they did this, when did you start making content?
17.
They were like, maybe that's our guy. Maybe they came to you. No, I don't know if they came to you then or they came to you at some point. We're like, listen, you're going to be sort of this pressure valve. You're going to release the pressure on this by speaking more directly about these things. I'm not saying this is true. I'm just saying it would be crazy looking back that if it was like, yo, what if you were the biggest psyop?
Well, I would say, I mean, that's sort of an accusation.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, okay, I'm using you as the example, but there's Tucker, there's all these people. Because you know that moment it was like you guys were like Spider-Man in the interview where it's wait, you know, I thought you were Fed. That whole moment to me was just so funny because I'm like, someone's got to be the Fed.
Well, it's interesting. Well, first I would say about Trump, he was backed by very specific interests in 2024. And it's sort of interesting because he was not even their first choice. In 2022, when I had dinner with him, it was coming off the midterm elections. So the midterms were early November 22. We had the dinner a few weeks later. And at that time, all of the donors were running for the exits. Like Trump could not raise any money in 22. He declared his candidacy for re-election in 24, but he had no donors. All the donors wanted DeSantis. Yeah. DeSantis was their guy. Specifically, I'll name names. Ken Griffin from Citadel, big Wall Street guy. Silicon Valley, Elon Musk. He launched Ron DeSantis' campaign on Twitter, on a Twitter space. Yeah. Elon Musk and David Sachs from PayPal Mafia. And Miriam Adelson. She was a huge backer of DeSantis early on, too. So you had the trifecta. Wall Street, Silicon Valley, Israel lobby. They were all behind DeSantis. In 2023, he announced, and it was a total flop. And they recognized that. By the summer of 23, I think he announced in May, he totally fell off, and they jumped for Nikki Haley.
Yeah.
And there was this talk that Nikki Haley would win the New Hampshire primary, and then she'd win South Carolina, her home state, and then she could be the nominee. She would be the Republican, if you could imagine. Same deal. Mary Madelson was behind her. Ken Griffin. All these people then went behind Haley. She lost in New Hampshire. Or maybe she won. I forget exactly, but she didn't win by a lot. They were forced to accept Trump.
Yeah.
And in May or June of last year, Mary Madelson made the check out to Trump, and Elon went behind Trump, and Tim Mellon, the banker, all these people eventually went behind Trump, and Trump effectively sold out. Like that, it could not be more clear. He took a ton of money from the billionaires, and all you have to look at is the small dollar contributions. In 2016, the small dollar contributions were like 60% of his total haul. In 2024, it was like 30%. So it was like totally inverted. And he got tons of billionaire money. So I would say that when somebody is selling out, it's very obvious because they're getting paid. Me, I'm under attack by all these people. JD Vance hates me. Peter Thiel is trying to destroy me because I'm against Vance, which is his guy in 24. Elon Musk is always attacking me on Twitter.
Yeah.
The Israel lobby hates me. They're trying to get me banned. At all their meetings over the past few weeks, they're saying, we need to pass anti-Semitism laws to keep this guy. So, very clearly I'm against Wall Street, Silicon Valley, Israel lobby. But as far as the Tucker and Candace thing is concerned, there's something very interesting there. There's something subtle there. And I've been talking about this for a long time. If you watch me, I'm saying very clearly that our issue is that we have an organized Jewry in the world, which is to say that it's not every Jewish person that's alive, obviously.
Yeah.
But there are Jewish people as a group are very organized. They have federations, congresses, fraternities, like they're extremely networked and organized. And with organization comes collective action. Right?
Yeah.
If you're one person, you can't make a difference. But if you have 100 people in a membership group and you're all rich or you're all lawyers or judges, now you got some juice. Now you got a little play. Now imagine this on a global scale. Jewish people are like the richest ethnicity in America, overrepresented in Harvard, Columbia, Yale, whatever. Super powerful. Now, that's fine. I mean, God bless them. Good for them. They have a very strong identity and they're very successful. I think largely because they're smart, they're educated. That's a big part of it. But they also help each other. Here's the issue. They put their tribe ahead of their nation. And that can be a conflict of interest. Now, that's what I say. What Tucker and Candace say is completely different. They come out and they say, no. We don't have a problem like that, and we don't even have a problem with Israel per se. They say we have a problem with specific policies of the Israeli government and Netanyahu. And when Candace asked me to do her show, was this a big reunion? Did we have a great time? No. She tried to put the screws in me, and she interrogated me and said, do you hate Jewish people for being Jewish? Do you hate Dave Smith because he's Jewish? And I said, no. I said, I don't hate
You gave me Dave Smith's number, by the way.
What's that?
You gave me Dave Smith's number.
I did, yeah. And I like Dave.
Yeah.
I love Dave, actually. He's a great guy. But what they were effectively saying is, because you talk about Jewishness, you're an anti-Semite. And I said, look, I don't hate them, and I don't hate individuals, or I'm a Christian. I don't hate anybody, actually. And in particular, Christians have a special respect for Jews. We call them a witness people because they witnessed the revelation by God in the Old Testament and the Passion of Christ. Anyway, so she brings me on the show and says, you talk about Jews, you're an anti-Semite. The real issue is like the neocons in Israel. And I said, that's just BS. Clearly it's bigger than that. Then she goes on the show with Tucker. And for 15 minutes, they talk about me and say, yeah, he's like David Duke. He's a Fed. He's a real anti-Semite. He's a weird kid in his basement. So I call out Tucker. Tucker has me on the show. I think it's a good conversation. Now he's going around everywhere and saying, well, I agree with Nick on some things, but not his anti-Semitism and Jew hatred. Oh, so there's that line again. So there's like a triangulation here. Tucker, Candace, me. And it seems like they both brought me on their show to either lecture me or interrogate me or to maybe create space between us and say, no, you're a Jew hater. I'm critiquing Israel's policies. And so there is a gulf between us, but the difference is they're still in on it. They still think Israel's our ally. They still have, they're still part, maybe 1 foot in on the organized Jewish lobby, and I'm totally independent of that. I would say that's the distinction between us.
So you'd say that, so they're the feds then?
Yeah. Yes.
It's crazy. But you had a good convo with Tucker.
Yeah, I did.
Obviously the Candace thing went a bit different. The conversations that you guys had, I know I guess, I don't know if he has dinner with all his guests prior, but the conversations you had there, obviously a little more personal, wasn't on the internet, obviously. What was that like? Did you feel like it was weird or like?
It was very weird. It felt like a cop interrogating me, and I knew it would be like that. Like, so we're talking, and it's sort of like, he was friendly, but friendliness can be authentic or inauthentic. But there was, like, I would say, an intensity there. There was a tension, even though it was friendly. There was like a deep tension masked by friendliness. And so we'd be talking and laughing, and, he's doing his laugh. Oh, he's doing that. And then he'd be laughing 1 second and then stop on a dime and say, so you took money from Peter Thiel. And you've seen him do it on his show. He's got like this agility, this like range. And by the way, that's not true. So, but he'd be laughing. Oh, that's true. You took money from Peter Thiel. That's like a real thing that he said to me. And I said, what? No, I didn't take money from Peter Thiel. He goes, oh, okay, I believe you. I said, who'd you hear that from? He goes, oh, he told me.
He told him?
Yeah. I was like, no, that never happened. He's like, oh, okay. And it was sort of like, and he was there's like a lot of weird questions he was asking me about obscure people that like a massive audience wouldn't know, but that if you're in this political space, you would know, or maybe problem people or disruptive people. And so I would say that it was sort of an uncanny, uneasy kind of dinner. And I wasn't talking about it, but then the New York Times called me and said, hey, Tucker said you were really nervous at the dinner. Is that true? I said, well, I thought he was going to kill me. So yeah, I was a little nervous. Like I didn't think he was going to blow my plane up on the way there or something. But yeah, so it was sort of strange. And what I don't like about it is we had this conversation and everybody saw the conversation and said, oh, it was kind of just like a standard interview. It wasn't very intense or anything. It wasn't contentious, but we all saw it. Then he goes on every show for the next few weeks, and every single one calls me an anti-Semite. Every single one. He goes and says, oh, well, I don't agree with his anti-Semitism, his Jew hatred. And it's like, what is that? He goes on on Megyn Kelly. He says, I talked to one of the biggest purveyors of anti-Semitism to convince him to stop being anti-Semitic. Is that what everybody saw in that interview? Because that's not what I heard. That wasn't my discussion, at least as far as I know. And so that's the kind of two-faced, like not direct stuff that I really don't like. Like that makes me not trust him.
Yeah, I get it. It's also interesting because it all feels like theater, because then on the other side, the people are completely bashing him the whole time. You know, the Israel lobby, all these people are like Carlson. They're still attacking him while he's dismissing you. So, I mean, maybe that's what you would do in that case, because that's what you have to do because you were there, you were on the show, and they have to continue to disavow you in like slight ways. I guess my question is like, where do you think this is all going? Because it's very clear, it's very obvious how powerful the social media thing is, and how the old mainstream is dead. This is the thing that people listen to. They're living and dying by this now. Mm-hmm. So if you had to guess who, I mean, I guess you just said it. I mean, who is the person who is, I'll deal with this. I'll deal with you need to say this. You need to say that. Who are those people? You think it's Tucker still?
No, I don't think so. I think that Tucker has his own agenda. I don't know what it is. I have
to
ideas.
Sell nicotine or
to sell Alp.
They sent me some. I loved it. But anyways, yeah.
No, I mean, I think that he is clearly the way that the world is made up. It is factions. I don't believe in the grand conspiracy where everything is orchestrated by a monolithic force, like where Russia and the United States are secretly in cahoots, it's being orchestrated. I think that the world is comprised of factions, and America also. And I think that to the extent that the Israel lobby is mad at Tucker, it's because Tucker is coming from a different faction, not necessarily of a Jewish cabal or something, but a different elite faction. I think he's with the intelligence community. That's where his dad comes from. Yeah. That's who his friends are. And initially, Tucker, the way that me and Tucker started having beef is because I was attacking his buddy, Joe Kent, who was running for Congress, and that guy was also in the CIA. And Tucker came out really hard against me, basically out of revenge, because I made this guy lose his race. And so Tucker was working behind the scenes with these other really spooky, fed up people like Max Blumenthal, accusing me of being the Fed, which is ironic. This happened a few years ago. So I think that what Tucker and Candace are, maybe Tucker, I don't know what Candace's deal is. She seems a little nutty lately, but I think what Tucker's deal is he seems to be something like the pressure release valve. Because I'll never forget this. He had a remark at Turning Point over the summer, and it was one of those blink and you miss it type things. If you weren't paying attention, you wouldn't catch it. But he was talking about Jeffrey Epstein. This was at Turning Point SAS.
Yeah.
And he said, everybody in Washington, D.C. knows that Epstein was with Israeli intelligence. He goes, everybody knows that. He says, but nobody will say it. Why? He said, we have to say that Epstein was in Mossad, because if we don't, the only people that will be saying it are those subterranean, actually hateful anti-Semites. Now, if you pick that apart, what does that mean? What is he really saying there? He's saying, if we deny the obvious, which is that Epstein was with Israeli intelligence, we lose credibility because it's obvious, and then we look like liars, like we're covering it up. He said, and in the event that we lose our credibility, the people that will earn credibility are the people talking about Jewish power, the Israel lobby, etc. And we can't concede legitimacy or credibility or the narrative to them. Now, there's a word for this. It's called the limited hangout. It's a psyop, which is to say we have to make strategically some admissions. We have to say some of the truth to keep the legitimacy, to keep the credibility, keep people's trust. And if we can maintain their trust, they won't go all the way off the reservation. So we'll make sort of like a tactical admission, and then they won't go and reject the whole system. And so I heard that statement. I said, that's a really weird but also intentional and precise thing to say. But if you're not tapped in, if you're not paying attention, you'd think he's saying, Epstein was Mossad. Oh, Tucker's based. But what he's really saying is we strategically have to say that, because if we don't, then we look like we're in on it, and they are.
Yeah, the whole Epstein thing, I mean, recently they came back. This is the frustration that I think the normal person has, is it goes from like, everyone knows it's a problem, to we have all the stuff, we're going to release it, to it's a Democratic hoax, to, okay, now we're going to release some more information that we now have. And then, you have Kash Patel being there being like, with what we have now, there's no one else connected. This guy's just acting alone and he's selling kids to no one. And now they're like, yo, we're going to release all of it now. Mm-hmm. And then you have this, I don't know, the speaker, whoever, the Johnson guy, saying that like, oh, it's going to be a threat to national security if you release all this. So we got to like look it over. Mm-hmm. Then we're going to wait for Trump to sign it. And now they're saying we're going to release it, but we're going to like take some stuff out again. Mm-hmm. Do you think they ever let that out fully?
Never. And I would assume it doesn't even exist, because Epstein was originally arrested in 2005. That's where all the files are from.
But beyond the files existing, and like, because there had to have been names in there, there's plenty of people to go and speak to and say, yo, you were involved in this somehow. You funded this. The Lex, like all these people, how are they? Those people they're able to go like this.
They're being protected. And Mike Johnson said specifically, so first of all, they did not want these Epstein files to get out, obviously. It was Thomas Massie that led the effort to get this discharge petition in the House to force a vote. There's a way that they did. So the timeline of it is that Trump gets elected and the voters are saying, okay, release the Epstein files. And they did that stunt with the binder, and they came out with their binders, and it was a photo op. And people said, yeah, no, put them online. Like, don't give them to Jack Posobiec and Scott Presler. Put them online, which they then did. And people said, this is bullshit. We have these files already. So then Pam Bondi says, well, they're on my desk. I'll release them later.
Yes.
Then they come out and say, oh, no, they don't exist. They're not real. There's only left, blah, blah, blah. It's just the child sexual abuse material. So then, this was in July, Thomas Massie said, well, I'll force the House of Representatives to vote on a bill that will compel the Department of Justice to release them. They shut down Congress early. Mike Johnson took the summer recess early, and they shut down the business of Congress to prevent this from happening. They come back into session. What happens? Government shutdown. Major battle over. That goes on for 45 days. Then they return. This is just a couple weeks ago. And Thomas Massie says, all right, here it is, the discharge petition. And they get Marjorie Greene, Nancy Mace, Lauren Boebert to vote on it. Trump calls all of them to a meeting in the Oval Office. I think Lauren Boebert came. And it's Trump, Vance, Rubio. It's all the bigwigs. And they say, listen, do not vote for this. Do not bring it to the floor for a vote. And she refused. And so it was only in the final hour then that Trump finally relented, a day before the vote happened, that Trump said, all right, we'll release it. And, but so it went to the floor for a vote in the House. And Mike Johnson said, the speaker, he said, we have to amend the bill, because if we don't, we are not going to be able to protect the political system. Like, that's an actual quote.
Yeah, it's insane.
And what's the implication? If we find out what's in them, the political system will collapse because they were all on the island.
Yeah.
And, and that is a good thing, actually, because if the people that were on the island are running the government, they need to be exposed and destroyed. Like, they need to be put in jail. So, but they gave the game away. Pam Bondi, Trump, Johnson, they're never going to release the names, the files.
Then but if you think they don't exist, then why do they pretend? Why do they keep doing this theatrical shit?
Because even though I think there's nothing, you're not going to find anything damning in there. You're not going to find like a video of a politician having sex with a kid. Like, I don't think that exists. It was probably destroyed if it did exist. But it's like the emails. They released about 20,000 of Epstein's emails. And it's Trump and Epstein deeply implicated in this. Like, Epstein is saying, yeah, it was just me and Trump and the girls were there. And so even though, like, you can't bring Trump to court over that, it still suggests that he's involved. And so I think that's probably why they don't. It's more like it suggests this, even though it's not going to be actionable.
I see. Well, okay, I want to bring up something you said earlier about just the sort of total control. You don't think it's just from one angle. You think there's different factions, right? Mm-hmm. It seems like that kind of, maybe not to everyone is obvious, but when I think about it, logically, it has to be, right? It can't just be Jewish people controlling everything. So there's different groups, right? I saw a clip of you from 2019, and you were talking about, this is going to get a little weird, but you were talking about adrenochrome, and you were talking about you're like yeah, it's 16 times more powerful than DMT, and you were like, and when people did DMT, they both took DMT and they saw sort of the same things, which means it's not here, but it's sort of like this different plane. And you were referencing then like vampires and all this stuff, and I kind of wanted your opinion on that stuff now. Like, do you think it's like, everyone, these ideas around Satanists and people worshiping Moloch and Freemasons and all these different groups, do you think these things are still existing?
Yeah, I do. I really do. And I think that, here's the thing, like, demons are real.
I wanted to talk about this. Yeah.
Yeah. As a Catholic, we believe, and it's in the Bible. It says we fight not against flesh and blood, but powers and principalities from other realms,
right?
From other dimensions, you might say. So we, as Catholics, we're very clear. Angels and demons are real, and really, demons are angels. Demons are fallen angels. They're entities that have form but not substance. So they're not material, but they possess intellect and will. And there are good ones, and then there are the ones that join Satan, and they're in the world. And this is the source of temptation. This is the source of protection, like, they are real. And I do believe that, and I don't have evidence for this, but I suspect that at the highest levels, there is like occult there are occult practices. And specifically, when you look at like, let's talk about like what the Freemasons are.
Yeah.
When you get into some of the Freemasonic rituals, do you know who the master builder is that they worship? It's King Solomon from the Bible, because King Solomon built the temple. That's what Masons are. They're builders. They're the guild of Masons. And so when they do if you go into a Masonic lodge, they do this elaborate ceremony about Solomon, because he got the blueprint, basically, the dimensions for the temple from God. And what Solomon did as the king of Israel is he had all of the different desert tribes from the Middle East come to the kingdom of Israel. It made Israel very rich. They would come and do trade and pay homage to Israel. But what Solomon did is he started to pay homage to their deities. So they would come from all the different Middle Eastern kingdoms with their own deities, probably demons. And Solomon would basically give sacrifices maybe, or worship those demons. That's ultimately why God punished him. And so that is what the Masons are involved in. It's sort of like it is heavily involved with demons. It's based on Jewish mysticism. The other element, you could say, nobody talks about this, but Jews in the world are very mystical. There's a very long-standing mystic tradition. People don't realize this, but you have Jews and they read the Talmud, and the Talmud is just like a legal code. So they have like tons of books, and it tells you like how to brush your teeth and like what to eat and like rules for living your life. But there's another aspect of Judaism which is very mystical. It's called Kabbalah.
Yeah.
And that is something that is very much a part of their theology and very much a part of their religion. And Kabbalism is kind of where all of the occult springs from. Like if you get into Aleister Crowley, if you get into the Masonic stuff, the Illuminati, it all really comes from Kabbalah. It all comes from like the Zohar. It all comes from those, let's say, hermeneutics about the book of Genesis, about the books of Moses. And so I do think that especially like some of these Jewish groups are involved in Kabbalistic. Like certainly they're inspired by Kabbalistic ideas and practices. And I also think that even the non-Jewish ones are influenced by that too. So I do think that goes on at the highest levels.
Yeah, because, when I look at it, there's the amount of money and the amount of power and the amount of control that, the highest powers have. It just seems like why go to the extent of harming other human life so much just for more money? Mm-hmm. It almost like makes you, because I would consider myself, I grew up Catholic. I would consider myself Christian. I'm not really big into organized religion because I think that was, in my opinion, that's one of the like, I hate to say it. I hate to talk about it this way, but it seemed to be like the first thing that was able to coerce people into what humans at the time wanted. Humans that realized we could recognize that we can make this organization with whatever it is, the Vatican, all these things, and we can tell people that this is what we need to do. And I just look at the Vatican, I'm like, they have all this money and their mission is like to make the world better because they're coming from this Catholic standpoint, but they just have tons of money. They don't pay taxes. Like, so I felt out of like, I guess, rhythm with religion in general. The point that I'm trying to make is it can't just be money and power. Mm-hmm. Like there has to be something sinister behind the need for more, or the complete lack of care of like certain people's lives versus others. It doesn't feel like it is just money. Like when I look at it, there's no way.
Yeah. No, there's definitely more to it. And anybody that's ever been in DC will tell you that. Washington, DC is just like a deeply evil place. There is something demonic about it. And there's something demonic about the people. Like, and I know a lot of people in DC, they tell me it's like swingers and orgies. And you got to realize it's like this because the people there, they're involved in like machinations, scheming, destroying people, lying to the public all the time, like a craven lust for power. It's like the people that are in politics are among the most wicked in the world. And it goes hand in glove. You have like your regular sins, like the weird sexual stuff that goes on in DC, all the way up to, maybe there's something supernatural. Maybe there's something occult there. So I really do believe that the higher up the ladder you go, it does go beyond let's say, avarice. It goes beyond greed. It goes beyond the usual kind of stuff, and it gets into something really sinister. I'm a huge believer in that.
Yeah. Do you think that could ever? Because it does feel like good versus evil. Do you think it ever? I hate to say this, but it seems like in a lot of ways, evil's sort of winning. Like, do you think it switches?
I think it's in a constant flux, but over time, evil has been winning. Like, let's be very clear. The arc of history is long, and let's say that for the last 500 years, evil has definitely been winning.
Yeah.
Because you had a time once where, and I am a follower of organized religion. I'm Catholic.
Right.
You know, there was a time when Europe was controlled by the Catholic Church, and by Christian monarchs. Now, and what has happened over the past 500 years is that the authority of the church was overthrown in the Reformation, which plunged Europe into these religious wars. You know, at one time it was all Catholics, and then it became a war of all Catholics versus all Protestants. And these were like the prefigurement of the world wars because they were so intense and so broad in their scope. And then after that, you had the revolutions. You had the revolution in France. You had the revolution in America. And they overthrew the kings. And so in the late 18th century, you had like every country in Europe was a monarchy except for one. Now there are no monarchies. All the monarchies were overthrown. Now we have all these democracies.
Yeah.
Democracies that are totally corrupted by money, totally corrupted by lobbying, you know, these other interests. And now we have a society that's just like, does not bear any resemblance to the civilization from even 100 years ago. And it seems like every century, more authority, which is really of a moral variety, moral authority, political authority, the natural law, you could say some sense like the authority of nature, all of that has been totally degraded. And now you have a situation where, you know, where is the order? Where is the moral code? Where is the law? It seems like the law of the land now is do as thou wilt, which is the demonic axiom of the occultists.
But that's the thing that's frustrating. Like through religion, when you just look back in history, and it just always seemed to be, let's use this thing and force it on other people, or if they're not accepting of it, kill them, change their language, change their, you know, demographic over time, right? Because like we're going to take the, you know, America being taken, and it just seems like it's always been used. And this is why I think I'm just so burnt out on the idea of organized religion and like everything that comes of it, because it's like as if man took, for example, when I think about Catholicism and God and Jesus Christ and what that means to be like a Christian, none of those things would align with let's kill those people because they don't agree with us.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I look at religion, I'm like, that's what religion has done for so many years. It's they've taken lands, or they've taken places, or they've taken power because they believe they know better than the other people who are there because they're not agreeing with them. And it's like, is that what God wants? Is like that's not a godly thing. That's not a Jesus Christ thing. That's a human nature greed thing of I want power, I want control because I believe I should have it over you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I guess my question to you is sort of in regards to your perspective on, you know, this nationalistic idea about America needs to be Christian or Catholic.
I mean, I don't think it'll ever be fully Catholic, at least not anytime soon. I think we should just be Christian for now.
Yeah. But so, you know, there's for your idea sometimes when it comes to like immigration and all this stuff, and I want to talk about one of these Trump tweets. He just tweeted like yesterday or today, some wild shit about like, we're going to stop completely, complete third world immigration. I'm going to ask your perspective on that. But I guess when I think of sometimes about the one thing that holds me up with your conversation around it is, and I think you had a conversation with Destiny about this, as much as I disagree with 99% of what that guy says, he did make one point about your sort of contention with Jewish people and Judaism and them sort of controlling, you know, the world or America, right? Versus your perspective of wanting Catholics or Christianity to be the main driving force. What's really different there? If like you're then doing what they're trying to do, but you want to do what you're trying to do on the opposite spectrum,
right?
So what's the core difference?
Well, they are two different religions.
Fair, yeah.
And, it's sort of like saying, okay, two people have two different opinions. So no one's right. You know what I mean? Like, or there's two sides in a team game, I
guess the reason why I phrased that question that way was because everything else we just said about the sort of detriment of the controlling religious factions in history that have been just like, if you're not with me, you're an enemy, and we're going to kill you. We're going to take your stuff. This is us now. Learn our religion, learn our language. It's in a way the same thing that, has caused all the biggest problems in the world.
Right.
So I'm not saying that like today, if Catholics were in charge of America, would they just then like kill, people somewhere else, right? Or kill people here? But there seems to be like when we're incorporating religion into at least what America is, from what I understand constitutionally, like when they originally did it, it was like, this needs to be separate. We need to separate these things because we're going to have so many different people here because that's what America is. And then your perspective is, well, I want it to be this way.
Well, I mean, for starters, the founding fathers never intended that we were going to have diversity. When America was founded, it was almost all English Protestants for the most part, except there were some Catholics in Maryland, but it was basically all English Protestants. And in Federalist Number 2 by John Jay, these are the papers that it was John Jay, Alexander Hamilton, I think James Madison. They wrote 50-some papers in favor of the Constitution, to adopt the Constitution.
Yeah.
And in the second Federalist paper, John Jay writes, he's very clear about this in the end. He said, God gave us this land, one continent for one people, with one language, one religion, with common characteristics from one place. Like, it was very clear. There's no diversity. And in the 1790 immigration law, one of the first laws, they said it's going to be white people moving here. In the election in 1800, Alexander Hamilton wanted to make it a law that you could not run for office if you're not Christian, to prevent Thomas Jefferson from becoming president because he wasn't really a Christian. And at the time of the founding, most of the colonies that became the states had like state-run churches. Like they each had their own church that worked with the government. So, our conception of America is formed out of the Civil Rights Act and the Civil Rights era, where you had the ACLU and the ADL and a lot of Jewish groups, as well as a lot of pro-black groups, and MLK Jr. and the rest of them. They basically reconstituted America in the 60s, where they said, actually, America's for everybody. America's about diversity and all the different races and religions hanging out. But from 1600 until 1960, America was almost all white, all Christian. And you can look at like every president even. Abraham Lincoln did not want to free the slaves. That's not why he fought the Civil War. And Abraham Lincoln, before he died, was working vigorously to send all the freed slaves back to Africa. This was like this is not talked about in history books, but Abraham Lincoln tried really hard. They had colonies in Liberia was one of them, and another colony in Central America. They tried to send all the freed blacks back because every president from Washington through to, you could say almost Harry Truman, they said that we never intended for whites and blacks to live together with full social and legal equality. And I'm not arguing for that.
Right.
But that is historically what they believed. Now, it is a matter of fact that America has become diverse and racially integrated. And, the Constitution was changed a number of times. And we have to figure out, I think that we want to live in harmony. I like the words harmony, cooperation. I think the races should cooperate. And I want there to be peace and respect and dignity between the races. But we have to keep in mind that the founding fathers, when they devised this system, they did not devise it with a multiracial, religiously pluralistic society in mind. That's not, and I don't think it works that way. I think it's very difficult to make self-governance work when you have a ton of different types of people living in a giant empire like we have. I think we kind of need to rethink that.
I see what you're saying. And so you're saying that during the civil rights movement, that's when it really changed.
Yeah, they fundamentally changed what America is.
And who was driving that?
It was a lot of, and it's not to blame the Jews, but like it was a lot of Jewish groups with the Black Power movement. And the reason why, they say this very clearly. In the turn of the last century, a ton of Jews moved to the United States from Eastern Europe. Around 1900, almost all of the world's Jews were living in Poland and Russia. They were living in the Pale of Settlement. And they fled because there was a lot of anti-Semitism in Russia under the Tsar, Alexander III, Nicholas II. And so a lot of the Jews came to the United States, and what they encountered was legitimate anti-Semitism. They couldn't get jobs. They couldn't go to university. There were quotas. There was just like a lack of opportunity. And so the Jews got together as lawyers and judges and academics. And, you know, they also came from other parts of Europe, from Germany, from Central Europe, from England. And they said, we need to work together to advance equality for all people. Because if we have like a legal framework in the United States where discrimination is illegal, then we are free to ascend. We can move up the ladder. And so they formed up these groups like the American Jewish Congress, the American Jewish Committee, the ADL, and these specifically lawyers and judges, they started to fight for anti-discrimination, for diversity, for all, you know, the idea of the melting pot came from a Jewish playwright, Israel Zangwill. He said, no, America's for everybody. And they said that they would join up with all immigrant groups and the black people too, and they were going to make a case for equality for everybody, because if they fought discrimination generally, then they can bring all of the marginalized people on the same team against the white majority. And like the rising tide would lift everybody's boats, Jewish people included.
Right.
And so the Jewish lawyers were a major force in the 50s, 60s, and 70s for all of it. Affirmative action, integration, desegregation, the civil rights law, the voting rights, all this kind of stuff. And don't get me wrong, I'm in favor of some of it. I'm not in favor of Jim Crow, but they forcibly integrated society. The other thing is they also supported mass migration. They fought against national origins quotas. Because, you know, in the 24 Immigration Act and other immigration laws, they said, we don't want all these Jews from Poland. And so Jews fought to make it so that it didn't matter where you came from. You could come from Mexico, you could come from Africa, you can come from China. We're not going to control immigration by your national origin. So, you know, when you think about this like beast in America on the left, which is DEI, affirmative action, mass migration, even the woke like BLM stuff, it all really proceeds from that.
Yeah. When did this whole like white guilt thing become such a pushed narrative?
I think in the last 20 years is when it's been around for a long time, but that's really when they made a huge push.
And that's, you believe that's just from the idea that like we could break this down so that then we can take control?
Yes, 100%. And you want to know why? Because no other group has guilt. When George Floyd, when they kneeled on his neck, and then everybody rioted, do black people have any guilt about that? Are black people hanging their heads in shame because of the crime that goes on everywhere? Are they saying, I'm so guilty that, you know, black people like O.J. Simpson killed that girl. We're so guilty that George Floyd robbed a pregnant woman. We're so guilty we burn. No, they're not guilty for the sins of their, you know, racial colleagues, if you call them that, you know, right, for their fellow black. And the same goes for Jews. Are Jews guilty about what's going on in Gaza? Does Ben Shapiro hang his head in shame about the massacres in Lebanon, about the Nakba? No, they're not guilty. They want us to be guilty. They want us to be guilty for things that happened 700 years ago. They want us to be guilty about slavery, colonialism, racism, everything. And they're not guilty. And this is like moralizing their political interest, which is if white people feel guilty, then we will step aside and let them take our place on the boards of companies, in Congress, in the White House, wherever.
Yeah.
And this is how they're getting us to voluntarily, as white people, give up America and say, here, we built this amazing, and I wouldn't even say we, I mean, the founding fathers, the founding stock, they built this incredible country. Now it's for all of you. Now it's for these 10 million people that came in under Joe Biden from Venezuela. Now it's yours.
Yeah.
No one would do that.
So I'll give you, I want to ask you this question. How do you think they were able to do it so successfully? Because two things. I remember a point in time when if you just said yo, like if I was describing, if I said there was a group of 5 people over there, one was black, and I said the black guy, and I'm a white guy, just saying that, people around me would go, what do you mean the black guy? It's like, no, the guy who's black, obviously. Like that, it's say there's 10 people there, there's one black person, I just identify and I say it's the black guy. I remember at one point, like if you did that, other white people would be like, whoa, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you saying? Why are you saying that? You mean African-American? Like you have to say this, it's correct. There's that one thing. And then there is the other one that they were able to do. And I want to ask you this question after. It was like, if I just said, oh, that person's a Jew, that felt bad to say. How do you think they got to the level of like consciously people go, oh, I shouldn't even say this? Because there's one thing to be like, to shame, like, I mean, I guess maybe that's the answer, is the shame over time of like who you are and what your people did and what was in the past. And there's that constant pressure, or I don't know if it's the sort of the way they make movies or the way they incorporate like that guilt into all that, and you see it. But I'm telling you, I'm not like someone who subscribes to like, oh, because someone says this, I have to feel this consciously, but subconsciously, I still would feel that. I still would be like, I remember saying like, oh yeah, the black guy, and then everyone is just like, oh, how do you think they created that subconscious guilt?
I think it's conditioning. It's like because we all see what happens to racists. If you're racist, and growing up, I mean, I grew up fairly recently, and I remember if you were racist, that was like the worst thing a human being could possibly be. It was like, it was backwards, evil, not cool. They basically created this like Pavlovian response with this stigmatization of any talk of race at all. Like, for example, Kramer, Michael Richards. Remember when he went to the comedy club and he said, he's the N-word, blah, blah, blah. And look at what they did to this guy. It was like a Stalin level show, not in a good way. Stalin level. Don't like that part. It was like a show trial. The way they dragged this guy out, making him cry and apologize. I don't know what I said. And that's why I say it was like 20 years ago, because I remember that was maybe like the beginning of it where it got weird. Because it's like he did like a comedy set and it was in poor taste. I don't think anyone would argue that, but it wasn't the end of the world. And this guy got ruined for it. Yeah. And it was like, that was just the new reality that we lived in, where it's like that word is off limits, and racial humor gradually became off limits. Yeah. And Trayvon Martin came around in 2008, and you couldn't talk about that. It was, oh, this poor guy with the Skittles and Arizona iced tea in his hoodie. And so it's just these like these like news media related events. It was in entertainment. It was in Hollywood. And I also think they captured the younger generation. I think it was really with the kids. Yeah. That they programmed, because then they became the foot soldiers in the universities. And, you know, people think that happened later than it did. It was even in the 90s and early 2000s that young people would go to college and get brainwashed with this Howard Zinn People's History of America, where they got programmed to believe, no, the latest intellectual trend is that Columbus was genocidal and the founders were racist and evil. And they then became the professional managerial class. They became, you know, in those white collar positions. Right. And I think they started to then promulgate these new attitudes.
Yeah, they started becoming the police about it. Like, yeah,
right. And you had human resources departments. So basically in the private sector, proceeding from government, from Hollywood, in the media, just this new attitude started to come out, which was like, if you're white, you... And if you're black, you're a saint, and we're never going to talk about race. Because it wasn't like that, really, in mainstream culture in the 90s. Yeah. It just kind of set in the 2000s.
The frustrating thing was, like, I remember feeling that way growing up and being like, well, the whole time I'm like, the double standard in this is insane, where it's like, but it's okay in every sense to be disrespectful and be racist to me. Mm-hmm. And I almost felt like you couldn't even defend it. You couldn't even, like, fight back.
Right.
As a white person. And I think you know, you're an example, like I said earlier, about why people are so enamored and like in love with you in a way. I think it's because you just completely stood like above that and was like, yo, I don't give a mm-hmm. And again, I have conversations with Mexican people, black people, other white people, Indian people, like they are like, yeah, it has been. fucked up thing. Like it's not a two-way street.
Right.
And so I think we're getting sort of to the end of that, which I think is cool, because I think anyone should be able to be proud of who they are. Whether you're Jewish, you're white, you're Mexican, you're black, you should be able to be proud. But it shouldn't be like, we could all be proud, but you can't.
Right.
That's the thing that like I think people are just really fed up with. And I think that's why you garnered such a large audience, because I think there's definitely a lot of white people out there that are like, yeah, why is it this way?
Right. Well, and I think that what a lot of people like, even that, because I do have a lot of non-white fans, a lot of people talk about that.
Man.
Hispanics, Muslims, blacks, like they like the show. And because they respect that I stand up for myself, even as a white person.
Yeah.
That's, I think, because nobody likes white liberals. Nobody hates like self-hating. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When like a self-hating piece of white liberal gets up and says, I'm sorry for my racism, I'm like doing the work. Even black people are like, man, this guy, you know, like even they hate him. They're not like, oh, you're one of the good ones. Thank you so much for doing your part. They hate them. They have like contempt for them. Yeah. And that's because on some level, even if you're a white person that is guilty and sorry, and you want to promote the black and brown bodies, you know, people of color, it's like they don't have respect for people that don't stand up for themselves, that won't take their own side. They have more respect even for white supremacists, because they say, at least a white supremacist is standing up for himself.
Yeah.
Like on some level, there's that.
Yeah, and we know what they believe.
Right.
Because there's less just, I'm doing this to please someone else.
And they'll never say it, but they respect someone that is, like, there's something deeply odious and hateable on a fundamental level about a person that goes against their own tribe, that goes against their own kind. It's the same reason, like, nobody criticizes black people harder than black people when they become like an Uncle Tom. Because what are they saying? They're saying you're a race traitor.
Yeah.
Even if they're right, even if they agree, because a lot of black people are extremely conservative, actually.
Yeah, for sure.
But if a black person goes out and becomes a Republican, that's seen as working with the white people. So they say, you're with the white people? Or even if they marry a white person, they say, you marry a white girl, your own people. And so every group kind of, and it, you know, it's like, they say, oh, well, a white liberal is taking the side of blacks, and we're black, so I guess that's good. But they say, oh, but you're not taking your own side. Isn't that kind of contemptible on some level?
I think even subconsciously, whether or not you're willfully thinking, I think that happens. It's
totally.
A human nature thing.
100%. And the important caveat is you can take your own side. Everyone knows this without hating everybody else.
Yeah.
I don't hate anybody. And I think people know that. When I make jokes and I say the N-word or whatever, people, I'm not yelling like, hey, get out of the pool. You know, that's our water fountain, you know.
Right.
They know it's playful. And, you know, that's why I like to use words like, we're not hateful, violent, cruel. We want harmony, cooperation. At the same time, I do want to run with my own people. I feel comfortable with my people. I'm white. My family's white. I like to be around white people. They're my people. Just like black people like to be around black people. It doesn't mean I don't have black friends, or I would never have, or I wouldn't let my kids play with black kids. But it is to say, there's something about the sense of identity, about being with your own, about being at home, having your culture, that everyone, I think, can understand. And it's not to the exclusion or to the detriment of other people.
Yeah, absolutely. Is your dad is Mexican?
He's half Mexican, yeah.
So I had we're going to talk about this like tweet and stuff, but I want to ask you about your dad. If your dad was illegal, would you want him deported?
No, he's my dad, so no.
Okay.
I would betray Trump.
fair.
I'd hide my dad in the basement, in the attic.
Yeah. Fair, valid. Dude, it's so funny. Because like most of my closest friends are Mexican. I grew up that way. I just my whole life it seemed to be like those are like my best friends just growing up, and yeah, I have a lot that I'd protect as well for sure.
Yeah.
Did you see this tweet?
I did.
Okay. What I want your take on the idea that he's permanently paused is a weird way to say it, but he wants to pause immigration completely from third world countries. The other thing I find really funny about this is the fact that he called Tim Walz retarded.
Yeah.
This to me it's so interesting because like there's this we're getting further and further on this line of like politically correct, and like no one's really doing it anymore to some extent, right? Which I was going to ask you too. Like, I think I asked you, I don't know, maybe that was an off podcast last time, but would you ever want to be president?
I mean, yeah, but I don't think that'll happen.
Because of things you've said?
Yeah, I think I'm too unpopular.
But I don't know. I mean, I see stuff like this, and the grab her by the pussy, all those different things.
Yeah, Trump is kind of changing it.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I'm not saying right now, but in some years, it'd be like, you wouldn't, to me, it's not such a far-fetched idea.
Yeah, not anymore. Maybe 20 years down the line.
Would you run for president?
If I could win, yeah. If I thought I could win, I would.
Dude, I want to be in that cabinet, dude. Yeah, we're gonna talk about the America First Foundation in a second, which reminds me of that. But what's your take on this idea that he's gonna permanently pause? Interesting, permanently pause immigration from third world countries.
I think it's about time. I think I really support that because people don't even realize the scope of it. We've brought in like 60 million people in 30 years. Which is, I mean, this is a country of 350 million, and we brought in 60 million in a few decades, and all from China, India, Mexico, Northern Triangle, Philippines, Vietnam, all from non-white countries. And it is such that the country was, in 1990, 50% of the U.S. population descended from the founding stock at the time of the founding of America. Think about that. Yeah. Half the country had roots to George Washington. Now we're like 60% white. Half of the births are not white and half of them are white. Yeah. And what is basically happening is the country is fundamentally changing. And it was one way. It was Frank Sinatra and Tom Cruise and Clint Eastwood. And now it's becoming Bad Bunny and Jason Momoa. And it's completely different. And that's reflected in even the quality of life. New York City, LA, Miami. I mean, I love these cities. I go to them all the time. I like to be there, but they're becoming more chaotic. Yeah. They're becoming more violent, more disorderly. There's a lack of a sense of togetherness, of community. There's this feeling that it's like you're in Star Wars. You go on the subway and everybody's speaking a different language. Everybody has a different culture. And
you picture me going into the bar, where all the different sort of like
the different
aliens and characters,
and robots, like, no droids. Yeah. And it's like on some level, it's okay if some cities are international and cosmopolitan. I think people like that. But what people hate is the idea that every city in America is going to be this way, and there's no refuge that feels like America. That is baseball and apple pie and white people even, and churches and Christianity. Everywhere is going to be like New York City. Everywhere is going to be playing soccer, and it's Diwali, and it's all this other stuff. And so I think that at the bare minimum, we just need to stop immigration for like the next 20 years. And we could have a conversation about opening it up later, but in terms of our fair share, if you call it charity, if you call it, for the good of the immigrants or for the good of the economy, for the labor benefits, we have done more than enough at this point.
Do you think it's just the fact that they're from these other countries, the third world countries or whatever, or do you think it's just because you talk about like these cities kind of going to shit in certain ways, right? Mm-hmm. Do you think it's just because they're from these other places and they're not assimilating, or is it just because there's just so many more people? Because let's say, for example, it was theoretically, it was all, in this case, white people came in, and that was the increase. Wouldn't it still be somewhat chaotic in that it's just so many more people? So to police, to deal with, to house, to like, isn't that part of it as well?
No. I think the uncomfortable reality is that race matters very deeply because there's this idea that if we assimilate, eventually someone that a long time ago came from Nigeria or from wherever, one generation is going to pop out and be indistinguishable from an Anglo who came here in the 1600s, or virtually indistinguishable. But I don't think that ever happens because we come from a long line of ancestors, and what is transmitted from one generation to the next, it's not just the kinds of foods you like. It's your mannerisms. It's the way you behave. It's Amerindians, like the Native Americans, they still can't handle alcohol. That's genetic, you know, and even like you're Italian, I'm Italian. We're still different, actually, than like WASPs. There's still like a deep cultural divide, even as whites.
Right.
Ostensibly, we're both white. I would say it's, in theory, a different race. They're Nordic, we're Mediterranean. But you encounter Northern Europeans, and we're so different still. And there's proximity. Like, we're from a Christian civilization. We're from the same continent. We're like genetically similar, but we're still different. Then you talk about people coming from India. They have a different alphabet. They never develop monotheism. You know, they're polytheistic. They have a different language. Like, everything is different. And I think that in 100 years, those people are still going to be meaningfully Indian or Chinese, or Black people are still meaningfully African 400 years in. So
it's the assimilation thing that the problem that you think lies in.
Yeah, because I don't think you're ever going to achieve full assimilation. We can achieve a level of it where they're speaking English and they kind of have some of our customs, but they're still going to be hyphenated. They're still going to be Indian American, African American.
Yeah.
And that's okay, but you get to a certain amount of that, and then there is no America.
Yeah. So what do you think the fix is? Do you think it's something like this?
Yeah, I think we just got to shut down immigration immediately.
Interesting. All my Mexican homies.
Well, they're here, so they made it in.
But so that then to my next point, right? So they're here, but what about this? All the stuff that's going on with ICE, and they're like kicking out these people. Mm-hmm. I just feel like there's a better way. I feel like get rid of all the criminals. Of course, I'm never arguing that, but I know so many people that like really do contribute.
Yeah.
So how do you play that game?
As far as illegal aliens are concerned, I mean, here's the thing. Like, we had 10 million come in under Biden, 10 million illegals in 4 years.
Yeah.
You got to get all those people out. You know, like the idea that 10 million people come in and like, oh, now they're here forever. Like Biden wasn't enforcing the laws. They slipped in. Oh, now we have to keep them forever. No, that's ridiculous. Like, that's a population the size of New York City, and now they're our problem. And they are our problem, because why do you think they came here? They came from Venezuela for the most part, fleeing the Maduro regime.
Yeah.
They don't have skills. Like, they're not coming here with college degrees. They don't speak English. They don't have any capital. What are they going to contribute? They're going to buy an iPhone and an e-bike, and they're going to be DoorDash drivers, and now we got to pay for their healthcare, their education, their kids. No, we're not doing that. And I would say, you know, we maybe have 30 to 40 million illegals here. Let's get all the violent criminals out. Let's get the 10 million that came in under Biden. Maybe do a little more than that. It's maybe not practical to deport every single illegal alien, but a lot of them are going to have to go back. It is like a huge problem. And we have to stop being the stupid country here. What is the obligation that these people have to obey our laws, to embrace our culture? What is the obligation of their government to take care of their own people? Because these illegals that come here, I understand what you're saying. They're not bad. Like, I know illegal aliens, and they're good people. Like, they work hard. They're religious. And a lot of them love America. I get it. I have sympathy for them. That being said, it's a major imposition on the United States from a financial and economic point of view, from a cultural point of view. You know, they bring their culture over here, and they take over entire neighborhoods, and they're going to have tons of kids.
But the Latinas
are bad. They're bad. they can
so
stay. They can stay.
And they got good culture. Like they're home caretakers. It's good. You know. I don't know.
No, they are. And look, I mean, I get shit for saying this on my show. Hispanics are not the worst ones to have. They are very, because they're family-oriented people. Yeah. They're more religious than the Americans.
Yeah, in a lot of ways.
Yeah. We used to go to church out here when I was working for Ye. I lived here for a couple months, actually, in the Valley. And every mass was stacked from like morning until 7 o'clock at night, packed house.
Yeah.
You never see that in white neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And it sounds like anti-white to say, but it's just true. So, I mean, they're good people, but it's just the volume. How many can we really absorb?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like what's happening with Europe right now, right?
Right,
like,
with the Muslims, yeah.
Yeah, I saw Tucker and, and, uh, 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 and, he's more and more speaking about the things that you talk about. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Totally.
But he started, like, I think in that recent interview, he's talking about white people and, like, you know, the erasure, and it's not the right word, but the extinction or the it being gone from there. And he's having this whole conversation with Piers. I guess the thing is, I guess the fear is that it's just going to end up happening here entirely as well.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Cause it's sad. It's like when you know, I saw this TikTok earlier today and it's like, oh, you know, POV, your culture's going away. I was at a Paul McCartney concert on Monday and you think about England and you think about the double-decker buses and the Beatles and you think, you know, and the idea that in 50 years, it's going to be all Muslims. It's going to be all like Arabs and Africans and Muslims. Like there's going to be no England. And that's like we cry when like a Siberian tiger goes extinct, when the polar bears are going to die off. This is a race of people that are not going to exist.
Yeah.
There's going to be no Germany, no Italy, no France, no Paris, no England, no America. What's America going to be? A collection of little India, little Somalia, little Haiti, little El Salvador. That's dumb.
But it's like, how do you really stop it though? Because it's like it's a birth rate thing too, right? Because it comes down to the fact that they just have more babies statistically as well. That like it's almost as if it's an undeniable future in the current statistics of birth rates. It's like you can't really even avoid it in the long run at the end of the day.
Well, the problem is that extinction is irreversible, and some of what brings it on is an invasive species. You know, so like what's killing the elephants? It's poachers. And what's happening to America is that the fertility rate is declining, and that doesn't seem to be caused by diversity because Korea has an abysmal birth rate, and they don't have mass immigration. Neither does Japan, and it's the same issue. It seems to be a symptom of modernity, which is that when women get educated and go to work, they defer childbirth, then they have fewer kids. And maybe it's a symptom of industry and technology. Like, who knows? There's actually not a settled answer on why the birth rate is declining globally. But what happens when you bring in mass migration is that when white people are outnumbered in a democracy, then they're outvoted, and then they don't have power. And so it's not like, if there's no immigration, America will have problems because our population will shrink, but it'll still be white people. If you bring in a billion immigrants in 100 years, it's just going to be Indians and Hispanics and Chinese running the government, and then they're probably going to hurt white people's political interests. Can white people rebound as a minority? It's much tougher.
I see. So it's on the Piers thing a little bit. You're going to do that interview with him?
Yeah.
How do you think it's going to go? Do you think it's going to be a hit piece?
It's going to be an ambush. Well, you can't even call it an ambush. He's going to go really hard on me, I think. Because there's no surprise. It's not really a sneak attack. It's
do you know if it's going to be live?
I don't think it'll be live.
Okay. I'm definitely watching that.
Yeah, that'll be intense.
I mean, he kind of flip-flops a lot. Like he's always sort of up and down. Like I don't know. You think it really would be that like of an ambush?
Very much so.
Just because of everything you've seen of him, or? Yeah,
I've seen his interviews with Dan Bilzerian, with Ye.
Yeah.
And he's going to put the screws in me on anti-Semitism and all that.
Yeah. Do you ever? I mean, you don't seem to shy away from any of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When are you getting on Joe Rogan?
I don't know. I don't know if it's kind of a big risk to have me on. I think maybe after what happened to Tucker, maybe he's less willing to do it.
I don't know. I feel like he wouldn't care that much. Not that he wouldn't care about any sort of like negative repercussions, but like, I feel like he's just always been the guy that like he's willing to have those open conversations no matter what.
That's true. He did have Alex Jones on very early on when it was super controversial.
So I don't know. I think that would be probably one of the biggest interviews on the internet.
It'd be huge. Yeah. I don't know if he would do it. I mean, I've heard some whispers that he might be interested in doing it, but
what do you think keeps, I mean, I guess the answer is just the whole anti-Semitism thing, but I feel like that's becoming less and less of like a powerful move to keep people away. Like, what do you think would keep him away?
I I mean, at the same time, I'm pretty controversial, and so it's just always a concern you're going to alienate the audience, because I do have a certain reputation, and in fairness, I have said a lot of things that, when taken out of context, make me seem like I'm the worst person ever, about women, about black people, about Jews, about everything. So, you also want to be respectful to the audience and not bring on somebody that you think is going to be totally offensive.
Yeah. I just can't. I can understand it, but at the same time, it's like, shouldn't that be what we're all doing? No one agrees with everyone on everything. Right. We all know that. We should be able to have these conversations with people that, even if what you think they're saying is wrong, you still have the conversation with them. Cause like that's like the worst, this whole cancel thing, and the way that they've tried to frame you to like further, like, okay, let's push them out. It's like, that only makes what I feel like what you're saying more almost like powerful and more important to everyone, to be like, well, why are they all doing this to him at this point still? Because it's just like, why as humans are we deferring to like, no, just don't talk, like, don't talk to him about it. Don't understand any perspective. Don't understand anything. He's just bad. That seems so like opposite of what you would do. That's just assuming, that makes me, when you talk about the audience, you don't want to offend them. That's then just assuming your audience is just stupid and they're dumb and they can't make their own decisions and they can't come to their own conclusions and they're just a bunch of stupid sheep.
Right.
That seems more disrespectful to like avoid having someone on than having them on in general, in my perspective. And maybe that's just my perspective, but I think avoiding that, I mean, hell, at this point, like I would say a large portion of your popularity was because they tried to avoid you for so long.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel the same way. And obviously I have the controversial opinions, but I talk to people I disagree with and I'm curious about their ideas. I talked to Sneeko. He's a friend of mine.
Yeah.
He's Muslim. We debate about religion all the time. And, and I've had people on my show in the past that I've disagreed with. I had Laura Loomer on my show a few times, actually. And we used to be pretty good friends, despite our significant disagreements.
Yeah.
And to me, if somebody is saying something that I don't understand, like I have no idea, what do you mean you believe this or that? I want to listen. Yeah. I want to hear them explain it. And, with an open mind. I guess where it comes from is the idea that some people are not willing to have their minds changed, or they're not willing to maybe put their ideas up to the test. They don't want their ideas to be disproven.
Yeah.
Me, I'm concerned with being correct. So if someone disagrees, I have to assume maybe there's something I don't know. And if there is, I want to know what it is. I want to correct my opinion.
Well, that's the more human reaction.
Yeah. Like I think that's an openness, because it's somewhat human to be maybe protective of your, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah. It seems like that's the more elevated position.
100%. Yeah.
And that's why when I think about this, the whole beef you had with the Ben Shapiro thing is like, if this guy stands so strongly and believes that you're such a bad person, then he should be able to sit down with you and prove to his audience and prove to everyone that you are such a bad person.
Right.
Through debate, through conversation, through ideas, through debunking whatever he thinks you're saying is wrong. Why does he not do it? Like, why are you not doing it?
I mean, for them, it's like, for them in particular, someone like Joe, I think, is a good guy. He seems like he's legit. But someone like Shapiro, what it is with that question, they don't even want people to think that it's up for debate, because their message is like, of course we support Israel. They don't even want to entertain the notion that you can't support Israel. They set the table in such a way where it's like, are we going to support Israel absolutely or only 50% of the time?
Yeah.
And so it's like they don't even, because a dialectic is created. If you have a debate with Shapiro and Fuentes, then it's like, okay, America's going to vote. Text 111 for Shapiro and they know that if you do that, at the most, I'm going to win the debate and everyone's going to be with me. At the minimum, a good chunk are going to say, this guy's ideas are interesting. I think I like him, or I think I agree with some of it.
Yeah.
They don't want that even to be entertained.
So it's a lose-lose regardless of them.
Right.
I mean, it was like, sort of like that. You remember seeing the interviews? I know Charlie Kirk did before he passed, rest in peace. with Pat Bet David, and then he did one with Ben Shapiro, and he was talking about, we got to actually question this stuff because I've lived through COVID. I realized we got to question the government. I'm able to question the United States government. Can't even question Israel. And then it was like he raised his eye and he's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
yeah.
That moment was really interesting to me when I saw that. And I guess I don't want to get into conspiracy theories about all this, like, not how he died, who killed him, all this stuff. But your take on the whole Charlie Kirk thing, I thought was really interesting. Mm-hmm. And I think your audience thought it was interesting too, because they expected you to be like, of course it's Israel.
Right.
Why did you defer to like wait and to see that, like, okay, let me look at this differently, or not, like, because you didn't recognize those things to be like, okay, maybe this could lead it that direction, that he's like somewhat. And again, I don't know what's true or not true versus these text messages that Candace is showing about, like, these donors, they don't want to, they've taken back money because I'm talking about these things and they're hard to deal with. I don't know how much of that is like factual stuff.
Right.
But I mean, if that is factual stuff, it in my head, I go, I'm not saying, and I'm not conspiratorial saying that they did this or they didn't do this, but I'm saying that it is an interesting piece that if they're, in my mind, I'm thinking at it logically, the one person who is their biggest sort of last bastion of like, this is their voice and he's standing with us, is even questioning these things towards the end of his career and life. Like, again, sadly, that they would obviously not like that.
Right.
And then I'll kind of finish with this, is that, and then as soon as he passed, like the first messaging around his passing was like, Netanyahu's tweeting like he stood as a lion for Israel. It's like, why are we, whether or not like they did it or not, any of this, it's like they went and they turned his death into this like moment for Israel.
Right.
And so when I saw that, I was like, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't see it that way.
No, not at all. And I guess certainly my point of view on this is colored by the fact that I had a rivalry with Charlie Kirk for many years. Not even a rivalry, like a straight up feud. We were in a war. And the center of it is that we were critical, and by we, I mean me and all my followers were heavily critical of him for supporting Israel. He was pro-Israel his entire career.
Yeah.
From 2012 until 2025. And that was really like, he did a show in August, a month before his passing, and said Nick Fuentes is a reprehensible, vile anti-Semite. He was like texting Dinesh D'Souza, "Don't talk to this guy. We've been fighting this guy for 10 years. He's filth, blah, blah." Like, he hated me, called me vermin. And so the idea that the Israelis killed him, like, at first glance, I'm like, he was their closest ally. Like, he was their top guy. They didn't kill their top guy. It also was all circumstantial. Me, I'm willing to believe anything if it's based in evidence and reality. And I just saw no evidence. Initially, I was willing to believe a conspiracy because we had no idea what took place. He got shot, and that's all we knew. And so initially I was thinking, is this a tactical force? Like, was this a professional hit? Are there going to be other hits? Is this one attack, or is it going to be like a series of attacks? But then the guy turned himself in, and we found out this was no professional job. There was no security there. They had 3,000 people, no security perimeter, no checkpoint. They didn't check IDs, tickets, nothing. It was wide open. So that's one. Two, the rooftop where the guy positioned himself, the shooter, whoever it was accessible by a civilian, a pedestrian walkway. So it's not like Thomas Crook's where you had to bring a ladder and set it up and climb up. You walk up the steps and it's accessible to any pedestrian. Then they found the murder weapon in the woods. They caught the guy in the Ring camera. And so this went from, oh, it's a professional hit job. And people would say, you're telling me that some kid went up there and took him out? It's like, well, anybody could have. There was no perimeter. Anyone could access the roof. How hard would it be if you even knew that this event was taking place to literally get a gun, walk up, take the shot, run away? Anyone could have done it. That's one. And then two, then we get all this evidence. We get the text messages. We get the Ring camera, the Discord server. The guy turned himself in.
But didn't they say the Discord thing wasn't real?
Who said that?
I guess Discord itself said that it wasn't, these messages never existed.
Initially, Discord said the murder wasn't planned. But then they found that he left a note and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I actually did it."
But also, too, even the stuff you're describing as like why it wouldn't be them, anyone could do it. Couldn't, if it was, again, this is conspiratorial, right? But if it was in that realm of like, it's on our own guy, then wouldn't that be the notion that you would want everyone to see? Anyone could do it. Anyone could have done it. It's that guy. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the problem is like, you could ask a ton of questions like that.
Sure.
And it could go anywhere, but we have to lead with the evidence. And the point is, like, I guess people started out with the assumption that like something was off about this one. You know, who could have done this? Who could have possibly done this? And then when you look at the evidence, it's like, well, there isn't really a lot that's weird about it, because there's been a lot of left-wing violence, and the left is very violent, and it's totally plausible that Occam's razor would say that the suspect that turned himself in is the guy. And unless there's compelling evidence that something was strange or something was suspect, or, you know, that it points in another direction, you have to say, okay, well, this is actually plausible. So
did you see the stuff about the guy who stood up and like was like, I did it, and then that guy was from some like 9/11 thing? Like, you didn't see all that?
Yeah, but I mean, even that, I mean, this is a guy that they said he was at every political event in Utah in the past 20 years. And you do have people like this. If you go to a political rally, there are these like political junkies. They're total like, they're no-life losers, and they go to every political thing ever, and they follow it like a groupie for a band. And he was clearly one of those types of people. Yeah. That's so it seems. And anyway, I'm willing to accept it's a conspiracy, but we just need the evidence. And I feel like Candace Owens, she's been beating this drum for 2 months now, and we're really scraping the bottom of the barrel. Now she's on Twitter saying, so there's people in maroon shirts in the audience, and there's this La Quinta hotel, and it's like, don't you think that at this point something would have turned up, somebody would have seen something, somebody would have said something? They got nothing. And so I'm willing to wait until the trial.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing. When the prosecutors came out a week after the killing, they said something very specific. They said, we know you want the evidence. A spokesperson came out and said, but the defendant has his Fifth and Sixth Amendment rights to a speedy trial with the jury of his peers. And what they're effectively indicating was, in any murder investigation, they don't come out with all the evidence for the media, because they don't try the killer in the court of public opinion. They do it in a court of law. And what that means is you need an untainted jury pool. In order for him to have a fair trial, you need a jury that doesn't think he's guilty. And so if you go out and say, here's all our evidence, here's all the state's evidence that he did it, they're not going to be able to find a jury pool that is impartial. And if you don't have an impartial jury, they could claim that it's a mistrial. So because we have an alive defendant, you really have to wait for the trial to see all the state's evidence.
Yeah.
And so I'm willing to wait for that. I'm open to a conspiracy, but I really don't think
but do
at
you
this
think
stage.
Do you think it's fully the story they're telling? Because the biggest thing is like the gun and like the damage. They're talking about the bullet disappeared in his neck.
Yeah, the 30-06.
It's like, how is that?
Well, you know, MLK Jr. was shot with the 30-06, and the same thing happened. He got shot in the face, and it lodged in his shoulder. And there was no exit wound, and his face didn't blow up. And so you have this is, again, it's like people that are not, and I'm not a ballistics expert either, but people go online and they go, oh, that bullet would never do that. And it's like, okay, but you don't know anything about physics, and you don't know anything about ballistics. So what are you talking about? You know, it's like, if there's expert testimony, it will be there at the trial. But it's like, again, people are just kind of taking anything they can find and using either extrapolation or, you know, asking these kinds of rhetorical questions, and there just really isn't any hard evidence.
Do you think then Candace is doing it just for like engagement?
I think that's a huge part of it.
Yeah.
I really do. I think that, you know, and obviously I have beef with Candace. I think that she cares that her friend died, certainly. Yeah. And, you know, you can't discount that. At the same time, this has been really good business for her.
Yeah.
Like after her show from the first day that she did it after the killing, she's getting like 150,000 viewers, millions of views on every show. She's probably making tons of money. At this point, I think she's milking it. It's been like 3 months, and every show is, and it's like this, she's just baiting. Every day it's, this changes everything. You're not going to want to miss it. Tune in tomorrow.
Yeah.
She's also like slow walking the evidence, where she's like, I have more evidence, but I'm going to wait to release it. Why? So you can milk it for ratings. If you have evidence, put it all out there.
Yeah, and I've seen you mention that a few times.
So I think, there's a fine line, and I really am willing to be charitable, even though I don't really like her, and say it's her friend. They're very close. Like, I don't think she's a horrible person. At the same time, you're an influencer. I'm an influencer. You know how it is.
I get it.
You want to have the big show. And I think that at this point, she's milking it a little bit.
Yeah. What about the whole thing about her assassination? Have you seen that? The French government's trying to kill her now?
It's like, show the evidence.
Yeah.
She says she's got the names, the paper trail. Oh, but I'm not going to show anybody. Show us the shred of evidence and we'll believe you. But at this point, she sounds totally crazy. And of course it went back to Brigitte Macron. You knew it was going there. I knew from the second that she did the show about Charlie Kirk, I'm like, it's just a matter of time before Brigitte Macron is implicated in this conspiracy.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, you're funny. Oh my God. All right. Switching topics a little bit. I think dating. Talk about dating.
Sure.
Okay. What do you think are the biggest problems that men have when it comes to approaching women nowadays?
I'm not really the expert. I don't know when the last time I approached a woman was, probably in high school or college. But
because I'm going to tell you, obviously this is the second interview. I've done one. A ton of women, which is surprising. I think hit me up and they're like, I love Nick.
Really?
I love Nick. Yeah.
That is surprising.
Like straight up, like someone mentioned to me, they were like, yo, they saw that you did an interview with him and she knows this girl, and this girl was like, I love Nick. I want to marry Nick. I want to have his kids. He's the man, all this. So you get a lot of love.
Mm-hmm.
Do you not want to pursue it? Do you know, cause I know obviously family and all this stuff's important. Is it something that you're just like not in your scope of your life right now?
No, and it never has been. I mean, and here's the thing, it's sort of tough because I am pushing a line about what we want for society, and people sort of view me as a hypocrite because I'm in favor of traditional marriage and all these things when I'm not married, of course. But I try to separate it because I'm an individual, and every individual is sort of unique. And for me, it's just never something that was really a priority for me.
You want kids?
I like the idea of it, but to tell you the truth, I really don't. I mean, I do and I don't. I guess I don't have kids, and I think every man likes the idea of having kids, leaving a legacy.
Yeah.
And sowing your seed, right? And even being a dad, being a father, playing catch with your son, whatever, and being the patriarch of a family. I like the idea of that, but me personally, I really like to be alone. And
me too.
Every guy does.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like non-negotiable. Like I really,
Yeah, I get it.
I have no social battery. And what really keeps me up is the idea of, you don't have any alone time at all. Not when you go to bed, not when you wake up, not when you're eating your breakfast, not when you're playing video games. Like it's just, and when you have a family, nobody talks about it, but it's a huge responsibility.
Yeah.
And especially for someone like myself, I travel all the time. My life is very risky. Like I have people coming to my house trying to kill me.
Yeah.
And the things that I say, the things that I do, they put me in harm's way. They put my financial security in harm's way. And when you're married with kids, it's a whole different world because I'm willing to throw myself at the machine and give my life, right? I don't want to do that anytime soon, but I'd be willing to. When you have a wife and kids, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Because if you die, now you got fatherless kids, you got a widow, and you have ruined their lives. And so you, on some level, feel guilty then. Every time you take a risk, every time you do something, you say, am I going to be able to make it home and provide for my wife and kids? And not just on your own personal level, then you got your wife in your ear. Should you really have said that? Should you really do that? What about us? What if you got kids at home? I think about this all the time. You watch Breaking Bad. The villain in Bad is the wife.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a good show.
She's so the antagonist.
Holy shit.
Because you're watching the show.
He's killing himself for this.
Right?
Oh,
and
God.
He's like, he's up, he's rich, he's powerful. Like, that's a story of the will to power. Like, this pussy white guy getting kicked around, takes charge and becomes a baller. And who is there breaking his balls about it? Walter, when are you coming home? It's the wife. And it's the same thing in The Sopranos.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing in every show. It's like the guy's trying to build an empire and it's the wife. And I love at the end of Breaking Bad, he returns home and he goes, I just want you to know. And she goes, don't tell me you did it for us. He goes, I did it because I liked it.
Yo, the best moment.
Right? He goes, I was good at it. And it's like, that's me.
Yeah.
I'm literally him, like I'm good at it. And you can't have it both ways.
Yeah.
That's the tension as a guy. You can't really be the family man that you need to be, the domestic life, but also be the empire builder, be the king.
It's so accurate, bro. Because I spent, all my 20s, I was in sort of long relationships and they all failed because I was so focused on what I was doing.
Yeah. Yep.
And exactly the same sort of thing. Any sort of like feedback I would get about what I was doing that was negative, I'm not even willing to have this conversation, completely dismiss it. And I know that that's why those things didn't work out the way that they could have. But I also needed to do what I needed to do in order to get to where I always sort of dreamed of. So I do understand that. I do fully understand that. I guess in a more general sense then, looking at the landscape of social media in the world, just from your perspective, why do you think it's so hard for men to just date? Because it seems like more and more we hear, it's just like people are getting married way less, people are having kids way less, people are just dating way less.
Yeah.
What do you think's happening?
Well, and again, it's hard for me to say because I don't have a ton of that experience. So it's really from the outside looking in. And I guess I would say, I really am sympathetic to a lot of the black pill community and even the incel stuff. And I call myself an incel, sort of an inside joke and all that. But I really do believe that it is the hypergamy problem, which is that every woman is online and every woman that's online is getting propositioned by the most elite men.
Yeah.
And so it was the case once upon a time.
Bro.
Like you go to a bar, your local bar, and you might not be the best looking or the tallest or the richest, but maybe you're the most happening guy at the local bar, and you could get a reasonably attractive girlfriend or wife. Now, every white girl who's reasonably attractive on Instagram is getting hit up by like billionaires in Saudi Arabia.
Why white?
Because I think like whites and Asians are the most desirable, probably.
Okay. You think that personally, or you think that that's just like
objectively?
Okay.
Objectively, and I think that's the taste. Everybody wants like a white girl. Yeah. Even the black people. That's like a status symbol. I fucked a white in France.
Yeah.
Remember that clip? Guy. That's what they say.
Yeah.
So, if you are a white guy and you want a white girlfriend and not be like a passport bro where you go to like Vietnam or whatever and then you're up against like an oil sheik in the Emirates and you're up against, some rich guy in his 30s that's got a penthouse in New York. And I think that's a big part of it. But I think maybe deeper than that, a huge part of it is how social media in particular, but feminism in general, has empowered women. And, in the old days, women really needed men. They needed to get married because they needed a man.
Yeah, I like where you're going with this.
You know what I mean? To protect them, to provide for them. And now they don't need men. They don't need to get married because Men are willing to buy them dinner or give them money without even sex or dating or any commitment at all. And women have their careers or they're on welfare. Like so much of the welfare state is paying for single women, single mothers.
Or they're on OnlyFans.
They're on OnlyFans making $100 million a month or whatever. You know?
Yeah. Most don't make as much, but yeah, they don't need someone as much as they used to.
Right.
Yeah.
So they don't need them. And I even hear this from some women I know. It's just this like swipe left. Oh, he didn't throw his card down hard enough. He didn't buy me an appetizer. I didn't like what he said to me. Swipe left. And so men have become totally disposable and unnecessary for women. And, you know, there's something going the other way too. I know a lot of Chads. I know like a lot of Chad guys. And they're hooking up with a girl every week on Instagram. And the girls want to go and sleep with the Chad. I guess on a deeper level, because you can't blame it totally on women. On a deeper level, no one really cares about marriage anymore. Marriage has become sort of anachronistic. It's no longer a sacrament. It's no longer permanent. It's no longer really necessary. And I said this with Jack Neal. It's like a lot of boyfriends and girlfriends will live together before they're married. What's even the purpose of a wedding then? It's like if you're in a long-term 4-year relationship, you're living together, you have a dog, you have a shared bank account, you might as well be married, but they never do because they don't want the lifelong commitment.
Yeah.
And so I think people just don't take it seriously, especially with divorce. You know, if you're 1 foot in, 1 foot out, excuse me, what's even the point? So I think that on a deep level, there's a ton of dysfunction. Marriage is no longer an attractive proposition for economic and other reasons anymore.
Yeah. And there's just so much the grass is greener, the comparison. Like you said, I think social media has a massive thing where girls think like they can just so easily replace someone like that. Like exactly what you're saying. I think that's the crux of it too, is just like, and even from the men's side is like, what else is out there? And I think people forget that if you want something to work, you have to put effort, energy into the thing you want to work and not just go to the next, because the next you're going to have to do the same thing for regardless to also make it work.
Totally.
And I think people, are also then conditioned. I don't know why, but it seems like laziness is a big factor of this whole thing too.
Yeah.
Because it comes down to like I don't want to have to make this work, but I don't think people really recognize that love is work. Like to truly love someone, it's not just like, it shouldn't be just so, I'm not saying it should be tumultuous and you hate every second of your life or, you know, most of the time you're unhappy, but there are times where you have to be able to put in that energy and put in that work. And I think people are afraid of work.
Yeah, that is true. And, you know, it's the other question is like the long-term versus the short-term, because that's the other big thing. Marriage is really the value proposition is that you get old and you die.
Yes.
And when you're a woman, in particular, you're beautiful for maybe 10 years. That's the thing. And you could be pretty after that, but like you're in your prime, let's say from like 18 to 25 or something. And then we all know this is the game they play. They like to have their fun and then they want to get married later. Once they have their career, once they had their fun, they met every kind of guy they like, then they want to settle down. But then the ship has sort of sailed. Many men are the same way. And what happens is life sort of gets more difficult and sadder. And when you're in your 40s and 50s and 60s, you're going to want somebody that's going to take care of you when you're sick. You're going to want a companion, actually. That becomes really valuable. And
so then it's also the instant gratification. It's the gratification now.
Exactly. It's just that short-term thinking because I think about it too. I mean, you know, on the one hand, I think about how I don't want a woman and kids to cramp my style because I like to fly by the seat of my pants and be spontaneous and put my work first. At the same time, I think what is more miserable than being like a 45-year-old bachelor and you're like an old fart and you're not young and you're not cool. What are you going to do at that point? You know, and it's hard then to find a wife at that age. And then who's going to be your companion? Who's going to be taking care of you? It's going to be awfully lonely, you know? So that's one of the reasons I want to get married. That's what makes it attractive. So I think that's a huge part of it is people can't really even see 50 feet in front of them. And I think that's because a big part of that's the phone.
Do you think men and women could be friends?
No, absolutely not. Totally ridiculous. I think older women maybe, you know, like I know a lot of older women in the conservative movement.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, maybe that can happen, but young men and young women, they'll, you know, never going to happen.
Such bullshit.
Yeah.
It's the biggest bullshit. Oh, we're friends.
Yeah. Okay.
Shut the
yeah. What are we doing here? You know,
Yeah.
like
It's stupid, man. So about the gym. People wanted me to ask you about the gym.
The gym.
What the is going on, man?
what?
Why are you not, you know?
Okay. Well, like I know that I'm going to. Again, I want to. But I don't want it bad enough. Here's the thing. Here's my problem. So I love my life.
Yeah.
I like to go and eat. My favorite thing, because I'm not a very active guy, I'm very sedentary, and I exist.
Sorry. I just picture you talking about like when you talk about diets and like, yo, I'm eating fucking pizza and shit. Bro, those are the funniest bits to me. That shit gets me going, dude.
See, I'm glad you can enjoy it. Because some people are like, wait, no, I don't with this. Like, no, you got to eat like chicken and green beans, man. Like, this isn't cool. So I'm glad you can understand the humor.
I love the food, dude.
Yeah, right? Who doesn't?
God.
But like, I'm very sedentary. I like to think of myself as like a brain in a vat. Like I'm an interior.
Dude, you're fucking... Sorry, go ahead.
I exist in here, I'm in the realm of the mind. I'm an interior person.
Yeah.
I have an interior life. And so what I like to do, the only thing I like to do is to get dinner and talk with my friends. Get dinner, go home and hang out. And, and I don't really have any problems in my life not working out. And don't get me wrong, like exercise is important. You should like do your exercise to stay healthy and alive. But when people do like the bodybuilding, that's all like cosmetic.
Yeah.
And so the idea that I'm going to be like sweating and working and going hard and, measuring my calories and all that just to like look really good. It's like, I don't need to look that good.
So Clav's got it all wrong.
Well, Clav seems to have got it all right because he's like so famous now. Totally. It worked. Like he won.
I'm having him on Monday, but it's...
Oh, that'll be good.
Yeah, it'll be funny. The Looksmaxxing thing is hilarious to me, though.
I love it, yeah. What do you think about that? Do you think that's good or bad?
I mean...
What he does, the injections of peptides.
Peptides, I think, are great. I think... Because I don't know if I got this right or not, because I've been looking at him a little bit, but he said he took testosterone just like... Not even to work out, but just for the androgenic side effects, so he looks more masculine.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And I think that's a little weird because it's like, I get it, but at the same time, you're taking like a hormone that does have, potential side effects. And it's like, why take that risk? I mean, I guess, his outcome, and I'll talk to him about this stuff in person, but his outcome is just the aesthetic. And I think there's so much more you can get out of it. Like when I talk to you about working out, why not? When you talk about you're very internal and you're cerebral, obviously you're very smart. I just know that working out it's going to sound crazy, has made me smarter.
No, you're right.
It has made me sharper. And I think when I think about those things and those added benefits, it's like, why would that not lead you to be like, oh, this can make me better at my craft in a way?
Yeah.
And that's why I talk about it. And so the Lookmaxxing thing is like, it's just external.
Yeah.
And I think if it's just external, like, you talk about the bodybuilding thing, for example, it can be very actually unhealthy in the long run.
Yeah, right.
Because he was talking about taking I think he's taking meth or he's doing, there's no way that's like a good thing in the long run, right? Hopefully he's smart about it. Again, I'll talk to him, but it's a weird phenomenon that in the last, I don't know, is it like the last year, everyone's talking about this Looksmaxxing thing.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me.
I think it's cool.
His face with a fucking thing to make this more pronounced, right?
Yeah. He's bone smashing. It doesn't even sound real. Yeah, I'm like bone smashing. And
yeah, it's crazy. So I don't know. I guess I just bring it up to you because it's like, it'll just make you better.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I know I'm being a baby about it.
And even the dieting, when people troll you about why don't you try this diet or that diet? You're like, I don't want to hear about your fucking diet. It's like, also food, the nourishment of your brain, it's gonna make you better. But I just I even hit you. I remember I was like, yo, you gotta come to the gym. You gotta do a bench press thing. Cause I just obviously as a content creator, I'm like, I know that would be viral. Yeah. And you're like, nah, I'm gonna look like that guy.
Yeah, I'm gonna be so Ron Mamdani. It's like gonna have to put the stuffed animals like SpongeBob. It's like you can't embarrass me like that. I'll come back once I glow up.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hit the gym 2026.
2026.
New Year's. New me.
Do you think you'll stay consistent?
I'm going to try, but it's like, I just hate physicality. I hate it.
I get it.
It's so hard for me.
It just makes you feel so good, man.
You're right. I mean, because I bought a bike, like an indoor bike.
Yeah.
And I was doing it for a little while, then I fell off. But like I was doing it for a while, and you're not wrong. Like when you eat mostly protein and when you do cardio, it makes a world of difference.
Yeah.
Like not psychological, but mentally.
Yeah.
Because when you eat a lot of carbs, it's obvious, but like it weighs you down.
Yeah.
So you're right.
Are we going to get you to the gym today?
I don't know, man. We could go, but not film it. Wait, I don't even have an outfit. I don't have an outfit.
No, I got you. I got
it's a shame. I wanted to, but I don't have the fit on.
At least just go take a picture with me there.
Oh, I'll take a picture for sure. Yeah.
Okay. He's like, but we'll go. Don't film it. The thing, you know what I really want to see is because I want to see people's reaction to you in real life. It's more. I don't even care about the working out.
Oh, sure.
I just know because I've been there, and dude, people bring you up a lot to me.
Yeah.
I wasn't saying that just to like make you feel cool or something, but like you're like, for some reason in the gym community, you're very popular.
That's surprising.
Which is interesting, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's the political, like conservative thing, I guess, that a lot of, gym people tend to like lean towards.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe that's it.
There's definitely a connection because the type of person that gets in the gym is like the type of person that agrees with my politics.
Yeah.
I think.
No, I've really seen that. And again, I've seen it in person. So I'm like, this is like, I just want to see people's reaction to you more than anything.
Yeah, totally.
So, have you played Arc Raiders yet?
No. Is it good?
Dude, the game is so fun, bro. Do you actually play video games for real? Or is it just like, because I've seen like the clips of you doing the GTA stuff and chasing Ben Shapiro down the street to debate.
Yeah.
There's hilarious. But do you actually play video games for real?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Dude, we have to play.
Yeah, let's do it.
Like I play like,
What
I'm
do you
not gonna lie,
play?
I play video games every day.
Yeah, me too.
Every day. So I've been playing this Arc Raiders game and it is so fun because you have the proximity chat. And I just imagine you on proximity chat is like, bro, that's that. If you stream that and did proximity chat would be like, I know it's not your main piece of content. That would be viral, bro. So viral.
Yeah, I heard of Arc Raiders. Somebody tried to put me onto it. I know it's like #1 on Steam or whatever.
Yeah, it's basically like it's an extraction shooter. So you loot stuff and you like get stuff. You make your guns better, but you can go into teams of 1, 2, or 3, and you don't have to engage and fight. But the thing that makes it fun is that like, and I don't get paid for any of this. I just actually like the game. You can be like, yo, you see a group of people, be like, you could down on the pad or down E, whatever, and you could talk to them, be like, yo, we're friendly.
Oh, okay.
And then you don't fight, and then like you just turn on them. Bro, it's so it makes all the interactions like way more unique. Where
okay.
It's not initially like, any of a battle royale, battlefield, like you go to get the other team.
Right.
This is like, it can be more PvE. So you don't have to fight them, or you can. It's like kind of optional. And
like
that's
Rust.
what makes it, so that's what makes it way more interesting every time around. But we should play that game.
Yeah, definitely. I'll get it when I get back.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so one more thing. I saw the originally, it's ironically enough, I saw Ben Shapiro saying he's going to do this foundation. I think you maybe had done it in the past and you're going to do it again, and he seems to be very unhappy with the fact that you're doing it again.
Yeah.
But it's you and 2 other people who are starting this. You're the president of it.
Yes.
The American First Foundation. What is this going to be?
So it's a 501c4 nonprofit. And so I'm the head of it, and we have a couple of other people. I don't know how active they'll be. They're really just, one's a treasurer, one's a secretary. We just need a few people on the board. But so we ran this in the past. We created this entity so that we could do conferences. That's initially why we made it. So this organization,
Like the whole TPUSA thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So we did like AFPAC, America First Political Action Conference, and we did a number of other things. But in the past couple of years, we really weren't doing much more with it. We just put on an annual conference and that was it. And what I sort of realized this year, and it's kind of always been my long-term plan once I got on a good footing, is that right now I just have the live stream. So I just have the show.
Yeah.
And if anything happened to me, it would be over. There'd be no movement. There'd be no nothing. I don't know where people would go or what they do that follow me. It'd just kind of be over. And what it needs to become is a true institution, meaning it's not just built around my personality or cult of personality, but it actually provides resources. It actually provides networking opportunities. And so what we're really looking to do with the foundation is basically to make it something like a think tank, so that in the same way that you go to, I can't think of another example, but you can go to the website and find all the information that I talk about on the show. Because on the show, I talk about these like complex networks, like patronage networks and following the money. And, you know, we talk about like Larry Ellison buying TikTok, and then he hires Barry Weiss on CBS.
I saw that episode, actually.
Yeah, thanks. And that's like, you know, it's hard for people to keep up with all that because a lot of these names, you don't hear these names every day.
Yeah.
And if you're not paying super close attention, writing notes, you're going to forget the next day who this one and that one is. And, oh, I think I've heard that name before. So we want to start to put that together for people like Wikipedia, like in one place. You could see all the information. We want to print books. That's another big thing. Turning Point prints books. They get their college students to read a book list that teaches them the Turning Point ideology. We want to provide that. And the other thing is we want to get involved in the election. That's the thing people are always asking me. How could I get involved and who do I vote for? And I could say on my show, you know, vote for this guy, that guy. We want to rate every member of Congress and say, are they America first or are they not? Are you going to get their vote or are you not? And that way, congressmen are going to think twice when they vote on foreign aid for Israel. What is my rating going to be? Are people going to sit out the election if I do this? We want to apply some pressure, basically do what AIPAC does for Israel. We want to do that for America.
Yeah.
We want to be the American lobby.
So, for reference, and like to make this clear, it's not just to expose or show the sort of wrong, in your opinion, relationship, and in a lot of people's opinion, relationship from Israel to America, or America to Israel, vice versa. I'm assuming it's for everything that has to do with like America. Like no matter what, if it's not benefiting America, you want people to be aware of it.
Yes.
Okay.
That's why it's America first. So as a C4, the mission of it is to provide political education. And we want to provide political education to make people more informed voters, more informed decision makers. And the spotlight is on corruption, because that's really the central problem. The country sucks because the country is corrupt. The government's been corrupted. And so they're putting Wall Street first, Silicon Valley first,
it's so
Israel.
obvious, bro, at this
Yes.
point. Like it's blatant.
It's offensive how obvious it is.
Yeah.
You know, like they don't even care that we know. And so we want to put pressure in the other direction on behalf of the people.
Cool. How could I get involved in that?
I'll tell you, we're going to relaunch it in January. So we're going to have all the information next year.
Cool. I'll make sure I definitely like that. I love the idea. So I want to be involved in that for sure. One last thing. If not Vance in 2028, who do they vote for then?
Well, you know, right now, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because the problem is, first of all, it's way too early. You know, the primary is going to start roughly in maybe a year, 18 months. It'll start in 2027.
Yeah.
And we just don't know who's going to run. So
do you think that in light of everything that's happened over the last like 2 years, that, I mean, we've already kind of seen this with certain Congress people, like kind of coming out and saying, yo, I'm not going to take this money. I think some senator or someone from Minnesota or something said, I'm going to give this money back from AIPAC. Do you think that politicians now moving towards will concede and be like, yo, I'm not going to do this? Like, do you think they recognize, you know, after I know Mindani got elected, and I think one of the things that stood out to me was he's in the stage and they're asking him about, yo, where are you going to go after you get, it's like, why are we even talking about this? And he's like, I'm going to stay here and work for the, you know, the Jewish New Yorkers here and make sure they're good in the 5 boroughs. And they're like, well, you're not going to go there. And I couldn't believe that that's still a line of questioning. I guess it makes sense, right? Because that's what they've always done. But do you think that politicians will start to take note like now?
Well, they already have. And I think that especially after the Tucker thing, that really made it, I would say, a wedge issue. And here's the trouble on the GOP side. So Tucker is really close with J.D. Vance. And when Tucker interviewed me, all the pro-Israel organizations on the right wing really put the screws in Vance. And they said, well, what do you think about this? Because he might be the next president. He's already the vice president. And they said, so Tucker's your guy. Tucker interviewed the #1 anti-Semite. So whose side are you on? And they're really putting Vance in a tough spot because the people are with Tucker and me. But the money and the lobby is, of course, with Israel. And so they're basically saying, well, it's us or them. So if And they made it very plain to him. They said, if you don't disavow Tucker, then we will support someone else. We'll support DeSantis. We'll support Marco Rubio in the primary, and we will deny you the Republican nomination. But I don't think it's so simple, because come 2028, can a Republican win being Israel first? That's what they're worried about. That's why they want to censor the internet, because what the Israel lobby is worried about is that by 2028, in the Iowa caucus and the New Hampshire primary, so many people are going to be against Israel that it's going to be more of a liability to be pro-Israel than anti-Israel with the voters.
Yeah.
So right now it's a question between the voters and the money. The people are against Israel, the money's with Israel. And it's going to put Vance and everybody else in this position of, if you take a pro-Israel line, you get the money, you're going to be super unpopular. If you're critical of Israel, you're going to get the support, maybe, but you'll be denied the money. And the question is, in 2 years' time, what's going to be more powerful there?
I when I hear that, I just think, like, couldn't they just, I guess it sounds conspiratorial, but like, couldn't they just rig it? You know, like, if they really want what they want, regardless of what everyone else wants or believes or thinks, couldn't they just do what they wanted to do anyways? Because I feel like that's how all this shit is anyways. Like, this left and right, to me, always just feels like, let me rally these people up. Oh, more people are kind of siding with this side, so that's where we'll go. And they like these values, so we're kind of leaning there. But it seems like it's just two different hands of the same body.
100. Oh yeah, they rig it all day.
So that's my concern, is that, like, no matter what, it's like they'll sneak it in there how they want it in there, regardless, because that's their prerogative. Period.
Yeah.
Whether in regards to Israel or not, just whatever they want, they're going in that direction.
Yeah.
And that's why I get so concerned with all this stuff, just in general. Like, when I think of the technology stuff and where it's going with, like, Palantir and this, the idea of, like, just implementing all this AI into our lives, and where does it go to the point of the Neuralink, and then are you just shutting people off if they don't agree with what you want?
Right.
Like, I have a real fear of the whole AI thing, that, like, it seems like we're going to go to a position where it's almost going to be complete and utter, entire control.
Yeah.
Like, do you think that that's the direction that it's going in? I think that's where they want it to go.
It is. Well, and you have to think that the other thing with AI is we don't even know what it's capable of, because what we're getting on ChatGPT is not the best of what they have. Like, they're using it internally. They're using the cutting edge AI is probably far more sophisticated than the most advanced model they've released.
Of course.
And they're using it for internal purposes. And if let's say you're a billionaire, or you're one of the most powerful people, what are you going to use the most sophisticated model for? You're going to use it to predict the future. And what's going to happen eventually, I think, is that the AI prediction it's almost going to blur the line with reality. Because let's say you're in an election. How much of what makes people vote is determined by what they see in the algorithm on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, YouTube? Are you going to get to a point where AI is going to be almost like, how would you say it? They're almost fine-tuning how the election results will go. How personalized can it get? Can they control every individual person's timeline with the algorithm? Can they fine-tune it to manipulate your opinion on certain issues to get you to vote? In other words, does it become almost deterministic that, like, AI will be programming people more than we program AI? And who does the AI then answer to? Anybody? Or will it answer to the people that are running it? Or will it answer to the government? That's what I'm sort of worried how it's going to manipulate us. Because
so Skynet.
Maybe less so. It's like, well, it's almost worse, because Skynet declares war on mankind. What if AI does something more subtle, where it's like, we don't even know it's at war with us or manipulating us, or who's using it to manipulate us?
Yeah.
Because if you watch enough, like, people used to talk about in 2017, the YouTube algorithm would lead them down the rabbit hole. Remember, that's what they said.
Absolutely.
I became alt-right on YouTube, whatever. Well, that's the power of social media before AI. What happens if AI could lead you down the rabbit hole? What could it get you to do or believe or support? Or the whole society at large, or some segments against the others? I'm concerned about how it influences behavior.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and then the behavior and the emotional reaction to things, like how most people vote for anyone anyways, is they're not even so aware of all the policies and all this thing. They just kind of go off of how they feel.
Right.
And so how you feel is, I definitely largely determine. I mean, even when we talked about the dating stuff, is like, there's so many options. There's so many things. It's what it's feeding you, what it's showing you. Now, now the concern is who's controlling it. Is it controlling itself? Like, where's that like sort of master in that situation? It's gonna get so blurry that it's just scary to me when I talk about it, because I don't know the answer. I don't know which direction it's gonna go in. Like you're saying, it just seems like, I don't know. It seems like I'm gonna be able to press a button and be like, I want everyone to believe this.
Right.
That's what I believe. But that's frightening. Well,
and the ability to surveil you, and you have to think about all the data that we are feeding AI, because AI, these LLMs, large language models, and everything else, it's fed on data. And what we do now is everything is a computer. Like your phone, your refrigerator, your car, your thermostat, everything. It's called what do they call it? The Internet of Things. That's really what the 5G towers are for, is because everything's going to be connected to Wi-Fi. And your printer, your watch, your shoes, like it's all connected to AI. And so the amount of data it's getting about your biometrics, your fingerprint, your sleep schedule, your eyes, your diet, but also it can track your movements. Your router can tell where you are in your house.
Yeah.
Because it pings the signal off of you or your phone or your device. And so it's like you're feeding it literally every piece of information, things you wouldn't even think of, like your movements, your habits, where you go, who you talk to, what you say, brain waves maybe. Sometimes it feels like your phone's reading your mind.
Yeah.
You think about something and then you see it on your phone. And then you think, okay, it knows me better than I know myself. How then can it use that against me? Maybe in a hostile way, maybe in a more subtle, seductive way to influence our behavior. And I think that's, people think, what if the AI controls us? Or I think it could even be more subtle. It's just like we kind of lose our agency when we interact with it. We become less human.
Yeah. That's my like ultimate fear, is that we just become part robot. Like,
right.
And then take that to the farthest degree, then we're just essentially at some point extinct.
Yeah.
So I think that's how it ends, man. To be honest with you.
Yeah.
Kind of sad.
More likely than not, I think.
Yeah.
We had a good run.
Yeah. Yeah. We tried. We tried. Well, bro, it's been an absolute pleasure. I think we gotta head to the gym. We're gonna live stream some bench pressing. And
no.
I'm kidding. Yo, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you,
bro.
man. Yeah, great
everybody
to see you
subscribe to the channel every Tuesday 11. I love you guys. Shout out Nick. Thank you for coming and making the time for me today. And let's get out of here. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Yeah,
bro.
hit the gym.